Welcome, you wonderful humans who are exploring this new frontier with us of the metaverse. I'm Atlas Talisman, the host for today's second day of the Crypto Safari. And I really feel that this is going to be a thing. We're going to keep welcoming you out on expeditions into the metaverse because so much is happening. We've also got the Crypto Collective Twitch stream. So, we don't want to leave you hanging after all of this. Please do check out twitch.tv/crypto collective. Every single day we're streaming with a bunch of people from Crypto Collective and the general community, bringing you different areas of crypto and NFT and DeFi and Metaverse and all these sort of things. But today is a deep dive. We're going to be going into NFTs, Metaverse, and blockchain gaming. And I'll be introducing myself and the other presenter in a moment. But I also wanted to thank Earthbeat Festival, and I'll be welcoming Sadra onto the mic in a second. And I just feel it's such a perfect partnership when we look at things like real world IRL, in real life experiences, like a face-to-face festival, particularly one that is related to nature, to environment, to humanity, to creativity, to all of that medicine, and the effect that obviously the recent lockdown has had on that. And so how we can still maintain all of the vital fibers of humanity and artistry and community in these times. And luckily we've got this thing called Metaverse. So a perfect partnership. And thank you so much, Sadra, also for calling us in and being willing to sponsor this event. So I'd love to throw over to you now and hear a bit about Earthbeat and the way that you can see the future of crypto and how you'd like to expose your community to that.
Thanks, Atlas. Kia ora koutou, Tefano. My name's Sadra. I'm one of the founders, alongside Isaac, who's also in the room, who'll jump on and introduce himself in a moment as well. So yeah, really excited about the prospects of crypto and the generally being on this expedition, being on the safari and embarking on learning a lot from those that are in the room that have this wealth of knowledge. And just a little bit about Earthbeat. So our purpose that we started about 7 years ago, and the purpose of the organization is to co-create a platform for transformation and celebration through strengthening our relationship and connection with the earth, so that we inspire and empower new ways of living. And for Isaac and myself and some of the other people on board, this idea of new and regenerative ways of living, the realization that we're living in a monetary system that's extractive by nature, that is set up as a grand pyramid scheme, where, like we look at today and on a global level, we're seeing unprecedented levels of inequality that we have never experienced before. And so it's been with us even before this huge wealth distribution during this pandemic happened. Isaac and I were talking about introducing a different, like an Earthbeat token into the festival economy, and potentially getting other festivals on board with how that would work, and then people could use it as a across various other festivals. Really interested in exploring the metaverse space. I know a friend of ours who some of you might know, Franco, is very much a bit deeper in what that means for the festival community, and just generally excited about what that means for Earthbeat, at the same time as being able to keep what you were saying, Atlas, those real world experiences as well. Yesterday was a real treat. We had a great time on the call, and there was so much learning that took place, and I'm really excited to hear what's in the metaverse, and about some of the fun stuff, as Priyanka was saying, in the crypto space. So yeah, thank you all for being here, and for your support of the Crypto Collective as well as Earthbeat. And we hope that this is one of many to come. I know the Crypto Collective Atlas will give you a rundown of everything that's going on there. But also for us, we feel like it's our role as organizers to open the gates to onboard people into the space that has so much potential for really serving humanity with a decentralized medium of exchange that is something that is both very tangible but also psychological in terms of how we see the world and how we connect to the earth. Yeah, so that's it for me, and I will hand it back over to Atlas, and I'll be asking a lot of questions. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Cedra. Absolutely, questions are welcome. We've got kind of 4 sections that we'll be going through today, and after each one, we will be throwing to the crowd for any questions which you care to ask. And as always, I'm totally accessible beyond the webinar as well. So if you forget anything, we can always catch up after that. But what I'd like to do is to start off, I'm a bit of a storyteller, and I would like to essentially take us into why the metaverse and where I think we're going with it. And I'll definitely wrap up with that, but where it all kind of started. So I'm just going to do a screen share here. Going to basic. Just confirming that you can see my screen there. And there's going to be a trick here because I have to let people in as well. 1 second. Notice someone just entered into.
You can make me a co-host if you want, Atlas, and then I'll.
That'll be great. Yeah, I've just got to admit that person, and I'll just come down to you, Kevin. Yay! Go team! We're already decentralizing. Look at us. All right, cool. Thanks for that, brother. Yes, let them in, and I'll go back to my share. So everyone can see the CryptoSafari verse. I can't see you. Someone could unmute and just let me know on the ears. All good?
All good.
Amazing. Cool. So CryptoSafari for me is about this exploration of this new wonderful world, which is this extrapolation of our minds, of our imagination. I've got my little creatures down bottom in the Jeep, my NFT characters, which are, these different identities that I'm going to play as. And so we can sex it up, we can live in our fantasy world. But when I look at where we are at as human beings, I really come down to a bigger reality that maybe it's a bit more like this. We're these blubby fish, we're these apes, we're these dreaming monkeys, and we kind of have this need for ourselves to be satiated in a lot of different ways. We've been thinking of this for a long time. Artists as dreamers have been giving these ideas of this 3D visual world. Like back in the day in Hackers in my teen years, I saw this cool, amazing internet that you could run through. And more recently, we've had Ready Player One, and looking at this idea of people in quite a dystopian world seeking refuge in this metaverse. More recently, Discord being one of the key platforms which would represent that potential community, are starting to have, for example, Discord the movie with Danny DeVito, and they're starting to show that their platform wants to grow out into these dreams we've seen earlier on in things like Ready Player One. We've got this thing called Facebook, which many of us know, and it's wanting to be a kind of a community, but we also feel the control, we feel the censorship. And of course, many of us have spent many, many hours generating content, whether it be a picture of our food or really detailed animations and high value courses on that space. But of course, they hold it all in their centralized bank. You've also got games like World of Warcraft, where people spend literally years grinding up the levels and building these characters into amazing effigies of all their best potential and qualities, and yet they're still the IP of the game, and they only exist in that particular universe. They don't cross over into a lot of other parts of their lives. And so I'll talk a bit about digital identity a bit later on. And so I'll continue on from that. But the idea here is that we're starting to have a look at this duality of being dual citizens, not just being existing in one or the other, but having life which spreads across both digital and real world spaces. And one of the key things here is the interoperable and unified metaverse. So I think this is, we've got activity on socials, we've got activity financially, we've got activity in our game space, and all of this can actually talk to each other. And that's where we start to have a real interoperable field. I won't go into the metaverse just yet. We're going to touch on that in a second, but I wanted to have a look first of all at what this dreaming is. What are we imagining as human beings? And for me, it all comes back down to in the 90s. And even before that, in the 50s and 60s, when we started to look at computers and what they could really do, we had, phone freaks, for example, like Captain Crunch, people who were hacking the system. Captain Crunch was called that because he had this particular whistle in Captain Crunch cereal box. And he realized when he actually blew that whistle down the phone, it would give him free calls, I think, nationally in America. So you had these people who were trying to like game the system because the system was gaming them. There is all this abundance. They could, let people talk to whoever they wanted, have the age-old battle between, Edison and Tesla and, free energy, all these kind of conversations. In the 1800s, we went through an industrial revolution. It was all about ownership and this very destructive mining and the way that we extract resources. And then we want to have patents and we want to own inventions. It feels very clanky. And for me, the metaverse represents a much finer, ethereal kind of space, like the Akashic field, like cloud computing. And my personal opinion is that we've developed this in sync with our spiritual and conscious evolution. I think that they go hand in hand. It's like if we look back at the human beings, one of the key things was our tools. We're not necessarily the most strong, enduring species. It's quite easy to hurt us, but we're clever and we have these hands and we have these tools. But I think it goes hand in hand, ironically, with evolution. Like the tool comes from the human and the human is made by the tool, and round we go. And so due to the nature of our society, due to the nature of our spiritual evolution, interconnectivity, our awareness of the dream space, I believe we've actually started to iterate on these more clunky kind of mechanical machines in computers and created something which is like a telepathy, which is like a transportation device to go anywhere in the world, which is like that shared dream space, the dream time or the Akashic field. And we're starting to have analogies of this thing in our technology because we're actually ready as a collective to accept and talk about these things. And I love the heart of it with these hackers. I love looking at all the clever ways people work out the system. It's philosophy to me. It's almost verging on religion when you go, how does the universe work? How does your system work? What happens when I lift up the dashboard, when I lift up the trunk, when I open the engine and I see all the mechanical parts? And that is the difference between a creator or an inventor and a consumer. And I think very much in the mechanical factory age, we were raised to be consumers. There was a one-way communication system. They talked on a big speaker and we listened. There was a television and there was probably a man that came o'clock in the 5 o'clock news and told the people what's going on. And we just went, oh, thank you, Daddy. And we received it all. But now we're evolving to actually want to be part of the conversation. And we had, internet technologies come along and we had certain protocols to standardize because it wasn't that accessible. It was all these bulletin boards and people were just trying to send each other messages, and you had to have certain level of understanding of computers just to go to the C prompt and type in things to get your computer to work and download things. So there was this barrier to entry. And then you had big companies like Apple come along and invent the GUI, the graphics user interface. And that made it analogous to what we understood. They called it a desktop, like my desktop. Oh, I get it. They had a little rubbish bin. And when you dragged things and dropped it in there, it went crunchy crunch, just like crunching up a bit of paper off your desk. I get it. We start to make it make sense on the human scale. And as a storyteller, and hopefully what I'm going to do today is make it relevant to you as that flippy flappy fish, which we are, with these two parts, front and back. We are gods and we are monkey. Like there's this correlation which the real life and the metaverse is always going to weave in between. And so we're going to talk later on about the onboarding of a lot of people into crypto. And this user interface and the user experience is a really key part, which we're not quite at yet, but I think that is going to facilitate the coming, maybe in a few years' time, when there's this massive onboarding of mass population, but it's really going to require that understanding. And in the meantime, you are still at that hacker level. You're still early. So even if you feel you missed, the Bitcoin rise and all the other things that have happened, you're actually still early. So just please take heart, relax, and be a part of this inner guild of pioneers who are really bringing this to the forefront. The type of person in this room, I believe, is of heart, the type of communities you're linked to and the network we've got here. Metcalfe's law, what is that? It's about the network effect and the power of that. We might not have hundreds or thousands of people in this room, but the quality of people in this room, I really have faith in. And that's why I believe in the metaverse. We've got this fear of transhumanism that we're all just going to be plugged in and we're all going to be pumped with 5G, whatever, and vaccinated, and this kind of dystopian narrative of, the cashless society. So many people, when I talk about crypto, say, oh, is that cashless? Is that moneyless? And I was like, yeah, but what story are you weaving into that? And so because of us, because of the hackers, because of the people who lifted up the bonnet and asked how the engine worked, and then if it wasn't working, who got involved and actually built the system further, that's why I have hope for what this metaverse will become. Then later on, after the 50s and 60s, and you had people creating the cypherpunk movement, which is a play on the idea of cipher, like cryptography and the codes and the secrecy and the encryption mixed with cyberpunk. So those cypherpunks are really the heart. And you can see that as more and more big players start to come into the metaverse, there's still this guarded wall. And I'll talk a bit about the internal economies of NFTs, because there is billions and billions of dollars. There are whales coming in, but there's this really clever, adaptive, innovative heart to the metaverse. And that is always going to be pushing decentralization. It's always going to be against any monopoly and control and censorship. It's always going to be a tool to enable everybody to get access to information. Even if it's just free education for all, that's a really good place to start. And then, of course, we bring in things like money as well later on. So that's where I see we are currently in the storytelling of it. You can see in our movies, like I said, there is Ready Player One, or you go further back to things like Neuromancer with William Gibson. We've been talking about cyberspace. We've been talking about this fantasy realm. And right now we have the tools and technology to do exactly that. But more so than that, what we're starting to do is have our social demand. We want this. We want to connect. And with the lockdowns, we had a human need. We actually needed to be able to connect with people beyond borders. And so that's what we're facilitating here. But just in closing this idea of the storytelling aspect, we're at a time when we want to be able to be rural. We don't all want to be congregated around big smoky cities. We don't all want to be in that centralized kind of way. We might want to live in a remote area. I had a friend whose family grew up in a remote area and was indigenous to a particular country. And by nature of their lineage and by nature of them being in a rural space, they had this big farmland. But there was this trick that played out where if you didn't use your farm, it could be taken off you. And how could you use it if you had to be away from it to make money in the city? So there's this really kind of insidious way that all the indigenous land, even though given native title, was being taken away from them. And so because of the internet, my friend has helped his family actually have internet connection and setting up some kind of meta companies. And so they can actually still have economy generated out to these rural areas. So that's the kind of, I want to destigmatize this idea of being all about technology. It actually enables a very natural life. You've got Kevin here on the call as well, who's literally on a tropical island and yet running a business from there as well. So we can start to have both. We can be the flappy fish, we can be the monkey out in the jungle, we can have sun on our skin, we can actually be decentralized and live in the mountains, the fields, or the valleys, and at the same time have our cognition activated, have the learning continue to share the folklore of our ongoing lineage of humanity across so many borders. So that's why I'm really bullish, aka I'm passionate and have a lot of optimism around what this metaverse really means. So I'm going to go now into, I guess, NFTs. We're going to circle back around to the metaverse later on when we look at games and we look at some metaverse projects like Sandbox and Decentraland, and also the utility of an NFT going into the metaverse, because at the moment, a lot of these PFP projects or profile picture NFT projects are literally just an image, just literally a JPEG. So I want to talk a little bit about the tech. I might pause just for a moment to see, does anyone have a question about the cultural anthropological setting for why metaverse and why now, or even what that word means. Any questions about that before I go into the technical aspect of, what an NFT exactly is? Feel free to also ask any questions in the chat, or you can bring your video on screen and ask me. No? Good, keep going on. Beautiful. So, crypto. Ah, Doug. No? You're just back, just popping back up. The gopher. Reminds me of that game at the circus that pop up every now and again. So crypto, I remember sitting on a rooftop in Seoul in 2014, and there was this guy who was telling me about Bitcoin. And for some reason, there was this level of inaccessibility where I didn't quite get it. I was just sort of, I heard it, I like technology, but I didn't get into it. And I feel like there's this natural evolution. I think there's a lot of people who are evolving in their entrepreneurial skills, in their technical skills, in their community building skills. And for some reason, it's now coming into focus, which is my experience this year. I'm just thinking of the recording, Hayden, I might get you to turn off your video because at the moment it's just you and I on the screen. And then we'll bring you back on for anything you want to do. We'll stop the video there. So what we had earlier this year was a massive Watergate moment, if you'd call it that. The damn wall burst open when Beeple sold an NFT for $69 million. So up until that stage, I mean, NFTs have been around for quite a while, and they were basically a way of encoding information with a particular standard, so there was scarcity. And I'll go into the different types of standards that there are. But the huge shift happened when digital artists realized that, wow, I could actually do what I'm doing already. I can make my music, make my art. And finally, there is this scarcity-based aspect where, like painting a picture on a canvas, there's a one of one, I can bring a bit of that quality of the real world over into this digital world. And that is the key function of NFTs at the moment. A lot of people will ask me, but like, how can I make my art into an NFT? And so one of the key things I want to address today is exactly to pull apart those two aspects of the art and the technology. So that's what I'm going to do for you right now, is I'm going to take you through a quick little look at this Beeple NFT. And do a screen share again and have a look at exactly what that means. And I think just having a look at the code behind it will give a lot of non-technical people a sigh of relief to realize how simple and straightforward an actual NFT is. And it'll give you the freedom as an artist to really start creating your art in a very free and natural way in the medium of your choice. So I'm just going to do a screen share here again, bring this across. Awesome. So, I'm not sure if you've heard of this artist called Beeple. He was a very industrious creator who made an artwork a day for 13 years. I think he's still going. And here it is, Beeple's opus, created over 5,000 days. And so he was one of the first, if not the first, digital artist to appear at the very illustrious Christie's auction house. So this did a number of things for the industry. First of all, it was Christie's putting their neck on the line in some ways to say, we acknowledge digital art, when usually we'd auction off maybe, ancient Baroque paintings or whatever it was that they were doing. We're actually now going to sell a digital artwork. And for artists, seeing this price ticket of 69 million USD in just the 12th of March this year was a huge, paradigm shift moment when I went, wow, I can actually start to make this as a living, and this is not just a hobby anymore. The thing I love about the story is that he was actually giving all of his work away for free up to that point. I've used his art in some of the events I ran before because it was always copyright free, and he'd, give the stems to his music and give animations and give things just so generous. And so after 13 years, maybe he's actually earned that $69 million tag, and he continues to sell very well to this day. One of the things I wanted to do now, though, is pull the curtain aside on the Wizard of Oz and say, what are these technical aspects here when you start to look at something like an NFT? What does it actually mean? So let's look at the smart contract address. I'm just going to copy this here, and I'm going to go to Etherscan. And I'm going to simply paste in that contract address that you saw that was between him and the buyer. And so now if I go down here to the contract and I want to read the contract, first of all, let's look at the code. Here we go. It's very much like any kind of code you might see, not particularly artistic or inspiring. It's written in a language called Solidity. And this was a language that Ethereum, the project, has authored. The person in charge of that, I believe, was Gavin Wood, who now runs Polkadot. And as you can see, it's fairly similar to what you'd think. C equals A plus B, etc. So this is not what you have to do if you're an artist. There's actually very sort of template cookie cutter contracts you can write. But as you can see, the painting itself is not here, but that itself is the contract. When I say read the contract, it splits it up into more readable sections. If I come down here, scroll down to the token, I'm just going to go back to the original Christie's website here, which had the listing, which you can check out for yourself if you'd like, simply by Googling Beeple Christie's if you like. And the token ID here is 40913. So I'm going to go back to Etherscan, put that in here, and query it. And it's going to bring a string, which is simply just a string of digits and numbers. And here we have where we exit the blockchain. So I'm going to copy that. So just to be very clear what's happening here, and I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. Does this make sense? Everything I've shown you so far is the contract, the smart contract, and the non-fungible token. And that's it. This link I've just found here is going to now take me off chain into the good old fashioned Web 2.0 to look at where the artwork has actually been stored. So as far as the technical coding aspect, you can just get a bespoke contract written like that to make your item an NFT on OpenSea, which is a marketplace we'll have a look at a bit later on. Or you can get, in this case, he's had one made for him, which makes it a little bit easier to read, which is nice. You might want to put some money into that. But the point being, it's not like a technical weaving with your art. It's simply a contract which shows who's the author, any transactions of who owns it now. And so what we're going to do now is to go to the interplanetary file system, IPFS, which just think of it like a Dropbox or a Google Drive. It's a place to hold the artwork itself. So hopefully that's clear. So coming back to share my screen, I've copied that address there, IPFS, interplanetary file system. And I'm going to come here to a new tab. You do have to put Cloudflare. Oh, I've done it before. So there we go. That's the address there. I'm just going to paste it in again. And here we've got the metadata. So talking about metaverse, this is metadata. What is metadata? Well, meta in this case, it's like what's behind the scenes, or I believe meta comes from the word beyond. So it's like beyond the images on screen, what's the hidden whispers in the back room of this particular artwork? So here's the metadata. And he's written, I made a picture from start to finish every day from May the 1st, 2007. So you can write whatever you want there. And he's also put a address. So up here, you see image URL. So URL being the domain address. And he's put a very identifiable HTTPS. So I copy that. And I'm now going to replace that out. I'm going to open a new browser, paste that in, hit enter. And ladies and gentlemen, I present the Beeple 5,000 days. So on my screen right now is the absolute original exact JPEG. And I can right click here, save image as, and go, I am a millionaire, and save it to wherever I like. And I actually have the bona fide copy of that. And then people say, well, if you could just do that, why would someone pay $69 million to get the Beeple? And we can talk a lot about that in a moment. But hopefully, and I'd love to hear a little bit of response to that. Can you see now the technical part separated from the artistic part? The NFT, the non-fungible token, is that bit of code which attributes value due to scarcity. It tells who the author was. You can also have a look, because the blockchain is essentially an open ledger, you can see who it's passed between and who currently owns it. And Twitter has recently had this authentication thing where if you want to have a profile picture of your NFT, they can actually validate it in your wallet that you are the true holder of it, and therefore you can have it as a validated picture. So all of that is wrapped up in the NFT. But you saw how quickly we left the blockchain. Very shortly after that, we just simply dashed over to the actual image itself. So if you are a social media user today, If you've taken a photo, or maybe more professionally, a scan of your artwork and uploaded it anywhere to any kind of server, which is simply a computer like Facebook or Instagram, or you've shared it with a family on the cloud, or you've got a stash of it in your Google Drive, that's the same thing. It could be a video. It could be an entire computer program with an exe file, an executable file. So you're not limited at this stage. All you have to do is work out how to link it up, which, you know, you can easily mint through something like OpenSea, which we'll take you through to in a second. And there is no further, and it becomes very human after that. If you are currently a coach or a facilitator, you have probably lots of value, like one-on-one time with you. Like maybe there's a special red carpet event where only certain ticket holders can gain access to it. There could be a utility. It can start to function as an internal currency with your brand. There's so many things that you can do, but that's all up to you to decide. You can automate it. You can start to have, you know, wallet verification and bots and, you know, more technical coded aspects, which give people immediate access. But more and more the platforms like Discord, which is simply a social media platform for gamers and community builders in crypto, are starting to do that for you as well. So you can simply create a channel, and we'll look at Discord in a moment. You can create a channel for your ticket holders, and you can have a wallet verification. So only if they're holding an NFT do they get an access to all that kind of other info that's there. So it does become very human. And that's as a game designer, I often realize how much of an illusion we weave. You've got all these separate modular functionalities. Like the NFT does its job very well, but then you just make the link to the human side and the creative side of your products. So I'll just pause there for a second and then just see, does anyone have any questions about the technical side before I start to go on to how I personally look at NFT? So the next section, I'm going to do a screen share again and show you my daily habits. So how I go into the daily scene, assess the market, check out a project, see if I want to invest in it or not. So before I do that, are there any questions about the more technical side of an NFT? Are you still on? You're still on mute.
Of course. All right. Hi.
Yes.
I just have a quick question about Etherscan. Is that the only place to go to, sort of type in the links and get to it?
Well, no, I probably wouldn't recommend going to Etherscan at all. That was more just the tool that I was using to have a look at that particular contract. But it's, as far as getting familiar with how to deal with NFTs and things like that, it's really a technical place. I mean, it is the go-to, like the central, like white pages, yellow pages, so to speak, directory where you can look at all the on-chain activity and that sort of thing. But I guess my question back to you would be, what are you wanting to search exactly? When you're wanting to go to Etherscan, what were you thinking of, like having a look at the artworks or the NFTs that you wanted to collect, or what was the function of going to that website?
I think I'm just after the information about where on the blockchain everything is accessible. So
totally.
I'm
about to go into that. I think the next section will answer a lot of those questions. So no, I mean, it's good to know that Etherscan exists. You can also, put in your own wallet address, or if there's a particular contract that you want to have a look at, you can totally, just paste it in the search bar at the top there. But my advice, to be honest, in the beginning would be it's quite overwhelming and technical, and probably the next set of tools I'm about to show you are a lot more user friendly. And so as far as either a collector or a creator of NFTs, I'll show you a much better way to go about doing it.
Okay, great. And also, is Solidity, is that the language everyone's using?
It depends what blockchain you're developing on. So if you're developing in Ethereum, then yeah, Solidity. So if you were a coder, that would be a good language to start learning. And these things are always evolving. There might be limitations to that particular language, but at this stage, if you're wanting to code smart contracts or be on Ethereum, then yeah, that's the language that you'll be learning at this stage.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Hey, Mary, did you have a question? No? Okay, no problem. So we're just getting you to switch off the videos just while we're doing the presentation. And if you have a question, feel free to come back on. Okay, so tracking with me, thank you for the questions. Also, like I said, feel free to ask them in the chat section if you want. What I'm going to do now is show you my every day waking up, let's go into the metaverse, people, and what I would do to sort of get my head around what's happening, the daily tick of what's happening. Of course, you know, it's great in the beginning. I'll send you a bunch of links to people that I follow. It's great to just every day, for example, I would recommend Elio Trades, which is youtube.com/FUD-TV, FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. For those of you who don't know what that means, watch him every day. He's also got a market analyst called Crown who does regular stuff on his show. There's another YouTube channel called Altcoin Daily. There's another guy who does a show called Invest Answers, whose his slogan is maths, money, freedom. And he does really quite conservative breakdowns of coins and blockchains and all that sort of stuff. So that would be definitely my recommendation in the beginning. They just watch these people every day. They do regular updates. But of course, they're holding your hand. And a really key part about decentralization is about sovereignty and responsibility, which you really need if you're going to take care of your own money and be your own bank. And so I'm going to have a look here at what I would do once I move beyond the trainer wheels of listening to someone else's regular broadcast and start to actually do some research for myself. So, and also while I do this, if Kevin or if Priyanka, if you also wanted to chime in, feel free to do so, but this is just kind of what I would do on a daily basis. So I'll do a screen share here. We'll come back. Let's just start off with CryptoSlam. So there was another tool. I'm not going to connect my wallet. Oh, this is interesting. So just so you know, what's happened here is that I've come to a wallet compatible site. And here's this little cute character, the MetaMask fox. He's following my cursor and it's asking me if I want to link up my wallet. I don't need to link up my wallet right now, but that's what this is about. And we will be sending through a video about how to get yourself set up with a MetaMask wallet. But even just for me to mention MetaMask and let you know that it's not a scam, as you can see up here on my browser, I've got both MetaMask and Phantom wallets and Ronin. And those are, Ronin's over here. That's Yoroi. Yoroi is the Cardano one. So yeah, there are a lot of browser-based wallets, and it's a bit scary when you first get started because you can hear about scams and hackers and all that sort of thing. But it is an industry standard, so that's what that is. And sometimes it pops up, but I wouldn't be signing a contract here because when you sign in with your wallet, you are essentially signing some sort of contract. And there are horror stories about people being sent free NFTs, quote unquote free, and when you engage with them and click accept, you're accepting some kind of contract you're not sure that you're going into. So anyway, let's go from here. There was another similar kind of tool, speaking about tools in Etherscan and whatnot, and it's called Nansen.ai. So this tool here is like the top of the top shelf analysis tool, and it's got a little bit of a higher price ticket, or higher than free, like CryptoSlam. But if you're really serious about it, then that is one to look at. But for today, I'm looking at free tools, and CryptoSlam works quite well. So if you go to CryptoSlam.io, and that's another thing to always check when you're at websites, is making sure you've got the exact address, because you can have CryptUpSlam with a U instead of a Y, and you can be led astray because they can very easily make duplicate sites. Anyway, CryptoSlam.io. What I see here are the NFT collection rankings with sales volume. So top of the pops is Axie Infinity, and Priyanka will be talking a bit more about this game. This is one of the blue chip play to earn games that with tradable NFT characters. So the characters that you actually play in this game are also NFTs themselves, and they can breed and make more NFTs. You can basically have a money making factory for 7 generations. As you can see, they've done quite well recently, haven't they? They've got a sales volume there of $58 million, and they're also up in the last 24 hours, 80%. So they're really charging at the moment. There was definitely an upturn of a Metaverse-based coins and projects with the announcement of Facebook changing their brand to Meta. And so I was watching this every day, as I usually do, and they usually sat at around 20,000 buyers per day. And now they've bumped up to 43. So it's like doubled in the last couple of weeks. And now it's fairly stably at that. If you scan down here as to numbers, the only one that ever comes close or is even bumping it at all to that floor is NBA Top Shot with 4,000. As you can see, it's a 10th. From 43,000 to 4,000. It's a big drop down to anyone even near them. And of course, with a huge brand like NBA, National Basketball Association of America, you'd hope that they would have some kind of people on the playing field, but yeah, nowhere near it at the moment. The other thing I wanted to show you here is which blockchains they are on. So just having a quick scan, not even knowing the names, but if you had a quick scan, what's by far the most regular logo you're seeing here? It's that little black diamond shaped thing, isn't it? And a few of this multicolored blue and purple S, a few of these golden coins. But by and large, Ethereum, that's what this logo represents, is the biggest blockchain that is being used at the moment. Axie Infinity have their own network called Ronin. You've also got this one here called Solana, and that's really come into the forefront of the NFT scene recently. There are NFTs on many different places. AVAX or Avalanche has their own NFTs. Phantom have their own NFTs. But having a look at those marketplaces and the scene, they're a lot less developed and a lot more ambiguous as to what's going on. So I really would recommend, no, I wouldn't recommend anything. This is just because not financial advice. Instead, I'd say the way that I'm approaching the scene is to really focus purely on Ethereum-based NFTs. And I also have a little bit of a holding in some Solana-based as well. If you were going to go to Solana, I would say maybe check out this curated marketplace called Solanart, as you can see it there, .io. And this is a marketplace that you have to qualify to be listed on. So they've got a few blue chips. For example, this project here, Aurori, they've got a floor price. A floor price means the cheapest of this particular franchise, which is 20 Sol. So today's trading, whatever that's trading at, 230 USD, whatever, times 20. So this is quite a well-priced, as in healthy price. If you're a collector of this, you'd be pretty happy right at the moment. And so these characters here actually translate to a game as well. The game itself is not yet released, but if you own one of these characters as a PFP, profile picture, you also get to unlock that character in-game as well. But that's not necessarily a standard price. You can get another project, for example, I quite like this one here, Gloom Punk Club, just for the art and the heart of the people telling the story of it. And as you can see, their floor price is 0.2, so a huge way off 20 Sol. So there's a lot to check here. So I just wanted to bring your attention to this because this would be the place if you wanted to look at Solana-based NFTs, head here. However, if you're really wanting to stick to the Ethereum based NFTs, there really is no competition to OpenSea.io. This is an open marketplace. It's not curated, so anyone can list things here, and there's a lot of things which are not worth much or could be fake copies of things. But this is definitely where a lot of the big blue chips like, Bored Ape Yacht Club and such do reside. And it's very easy for any creators like you and I to go and mint an NFT simply by connecting our wallet and minting something, which I'll do a bit later on today. But let's get back to the hunt. Let's go on Safari, like I said. So the point there was that Ethereum and Solana are the two key blockchains at the moment. There's also other things like Flow, for example, which have MBA. Panini, I'm sure you know that name from collectibles and cards and that sort of thing. They've got their own network here. You've got Wax as well. You've also got here Polygon, aka Matic. So yeah, there's a few there. And Matic also interacts with Ethereum, and we'll get into that a bit later on when we go to OpenSea. Just as a quick jump over there, if we go back to OpenSea, and if I was to look at something like, say, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and if I was to look at the marketplace here, their floor price is 41 ETH. So that's a very nice little investment if you've got any of those. What you'll see here is you've got two different things. You've got the ETH price. So if I was to click buy now on the filters here, I could buy this right now for 41 ETH, 41.5 ETH. If I had that, boom, easily done. But if I take that filter off, what I'm looking at instead is the bids, the auction bid. So here you can see there's a 2 WETH or wrapped ETH go there. And if you were wanting to actually place a bid on this, you'd be probably using the Matic network, and you'd be converting your ETH over to WETH or wrapped ETH, and you can put a bid on that. And so it's interesting to look at the history of these sort of things. And I will go into this in a bit more detail, but it really shows you the actual on table value. If this owner wanted to at any moment, they could accept this particular offer and get, or in this case, quite a measly 2 ETH or wrapped ETH. But it also shows, there's a minimum, he set a minimum bid of that particular amount. So there's an economy, there's the economy of the floor price, there's the economy of the highest price paid, there's the economy of the actual bids currently, money on the table. And then you can also see the statistical graph of the history of these things. And you can come back down here and have a look at the life cycle of this particular NFT. I mean, it's undeniable. Let's just look at this right now. It's kind of laughable. And at the same time, why didn't I get on this earlier? So we've got it minted, right? That means basically someone initiated a transaction, which turned it into an NFT and was thereafter on the blockchain. And it was done 6 months ago, little 6 months ago. And this is the thing that I want to just quickly tune in about. Are we starting to pick up how early we are? Before this year, we have like experienced NFT traders. Most of these people only got on this year, just like you. You might be just a few months behind. And sure, in crypto time, that's probably a few years behind. But the point is, this is like a blue chip. We're talking after something like, CryptoKitties and CryptoPunks. Bored Ape Yacht Club is like the elite sort of flex. Like, I am now an OG big collector in the space. And this was minted 6 months ago, now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just having a look at the quick life cycles and also the way that things can really shift overnight. So hopefully that's making sense. Just quickly having a look here. Am I missing any questions? Because I'm not seeing the questions coming through. So if anyone can, maybe Kevin, if you can have a look through the...
Yeah, nothing major yet, but I'll be answering them in the chat.
Thanks so much.
I just want everyone to focus on what you're doing. So
thanks so much. Cool. So what I'm wanting to highlight here is the fact that like the economy of what's going on behind these particular tokens. So 6 months ago, this was minted, as in it was put on blockchain as an NFT. In that same time period, it was sold for 0.3 ETH to Artfart, forever immortalized on our video as Artfart. And then in the same time period, they flipped it. They probably thought they got a really good deal for 0.125 gain. They sold it to XWX. And then they flipped it for another 0.3 to Ape Planet. And then Ape Planet flipped it 3 months later. So that's the jump in time there from 6 months ago to 3 months ago. And they sold it for 12 WETH or 12 ETH to Ape Master. And then in that same month, in that same time period, it went up by 4 ETH to Horny Ape. And now Horny Ape is currently holding something that was apparently, according to them, worth $181,000. So that's just to show you that the quick life cycle of these things and how, this is of course a real honey story of like, yeah, I got in early and now I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not every project is going to do it, but it's also just showing it it's possible. And this is a very common life cycle. If you look at a lot of these apes, this is the kind of 6 month process that they went through, often selling for less than an ETH, and then being up around this floor of 30, 40, I should say, ETH. So coming back to CryptoSlam, for those of you who want to go on the hunt, what you'd do is you'd come here to CryptoSlam and you'd go, cool, what's trading today? What's up? Wow, Bored Ape Yacht Club, 400%. That's crazy. What's going on there? Mutant Ape Club, which is kind of like a subsidiary of the same brand. And you'd go through a lot of these different projects. And maybe you'd want to come down and look at the lower ones around this area here, around 90, 80, and you watch them as they go up the leaderboards and see what activities sort of happening at the moment. Another project which is kind of worth knowing about is art blocks. And these are these different ways that these projects can be minted or put on the shelf. So something like Axie Infinity, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because Priyanka is going to go into that later on, but Axie Infinity itself is a video game and it's a battle arena kind of game. And so when we come to the website here, the type of experience of buying an NFT in this particular marketplace is simply going and getting one of these cute little bubblefish kind of characters, go to the marketplace, look at what's for sale, and then we have these playable NFTs. If I was to click this one here, say for example, This little animated figure here is a playable character in a video game and is an NFT. It's got a breed count of 1 of 7. So it's only had one baby, I believe it would be, and it has parents, and it can breed 7 times. So that's what this particular NFT looks like. Then if you were to go to, for example, OpenSea, like we just did, you can see those flat 2-dimensional apes. So that's another way that these things can look. And then if I went to art blocks, which as you saw here is number 6 on the charts, this is generative art. And the way that this works is you have artists actually coding a particular algorithm to make this art. So this is very different to if you're an illustrator or a painter. For this particular type of generative art, you do need to be able to create the code and algorithm. And then these things are generated in a unique way. So they might have, so for example, here, 29 of 500 minted. So this artist has said, this algorithm can only be used 500 times to make an artwork, but every single time you buy one, it's minting a unique generated art work that's based on usually a hash, like a string of numbers and letters. So that's how this is working. And if you look at one of the biggest ones here, I won't go into the collections too much, but this Fidenza is one of the blue chips of this. So it's quite a simple looking artwork, quite an abstract one, but these are like one of the highest, most prized generative artworks. So they've all been generated by a code that was written by this artist, Tyler Hobbs. And I believe they're all sold out. And if you want to buy them, there's a secondary sale on OpenSea as well. So that's like a different type of artwork that's generated, quite different to the Bored Apes. Now, the Bored Apes themselves are indicative of a habit or a trope that you'll see in NFTs at the moment, which is the 10K creature projects. And my encouragement, particularly if you're an artist, is to go more down the 1 of 1 route, rather than trying to make these huge, big runs of all these projects which have their rarity and whatnot. Do something that is based on your creativity and your community. Because if you're not already in the space, that's probably going to be your trading card, is your personality and how much people really like you as a person. The apes themselves are created in a way where the artist created a lot of layers, like in Photoshop. There could be eyes, there could be hats, there could be jackets. And there's a simple algorithm which mixes them all up. So, 2% of them might have a halo, and 10% of them have 3D goggles or glasses. And then like 80% of them have a plain t-shirt, whatever it is. And so that brings about rarity, which of course in trade increases value. So that's the way you do it. You don't necessarily, and the code for that is very easy to get on GitHub, which is a free open source place you can get the code. So even if you're just a Photoshop Illustrator user using on Procreate or whatever kind of creation tools you use, if you're able to create layers of things and layer them up, you can quite easily get the code without having to add any code. You can just Google that on YouTube, how to make a 10K creature project, as in 10,000 of them, and it can iterate through it very quickly and get you this whole kind of series. But that is only one type. And to be honest, it's quite saturated at the moment due to the success of projects like Cool Cats or Bored Ape Yacht Club or increasingly Lazy Lions, any of these kind of projects. Everyone's just iterating on that. Innovation and artistry is unique. Art management and replication is abundant. And so there's a lot of these projects now, and it's kind of a bit oversaturated. So coming back now to the ways that I'd look at this Crypto Slam, for example, I would then want to know, well, what is the trading volume that's happening on these things? So say if I was to look at something like CyberKongs, I can click through on that. And it's going to bring me to the trading volume, and I can look at sort of the behavior that's been going on. So today's sale volume is that amount, $1 million, 30-day trend. And you're going to look at, it was really down here, and then there's a massive spike, it went down, massive spike. So a little bit of chart reading does come into these things. At this moment, it looks like it's actually a lot of sideways movement. It's not necessarily increasing in a steady scale. You've got these peaks which happen at certain times. Instead, what I would usually be looking for would be something that's gaining momentum. Usually you'd have something which starts off really high, at, for example, Metaverse. Let's have a look at Metaverse. So Metaverse was a project that had a lot of hype, and then it was selling for a lot of money at mint time. Where are they here? And then you'll often see this kind of trend where it actually dips shortly after sale, because there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of excitement. Look it up here at whatever that was, 45, that $45 million traded. And then blang, such a, there's a reveal. So what happens is sometimes when you're minting them, obviously it's random, you don't know what you're going to get. Then you can actually buy on a secondary marketplace in OpenSea without actually knowing what you're getting. It's like a hidden card, you don't know what's in the pack. And then on reveal time, you realize, do I have a rare card or not? And that's often where you'll see this drop. So as you can see here, it started high and then blam, right down here. This is interesting. Then there's a second rally, and now it's kind of grading along the floor. This can be a time of consolidation though. So sometimes there can be a gradual build up, the floors being bought, the whales that really believe in the project are scooping things up, et cetera, et cetera. You can also look at the total number of transactions down here, the average sale price, et cetera. And then if you're a momentum buyer, which means you want to buy in when it gains momentum, you'd be wanting to see this start to come up again. And if you believe in the fundamentals of the project, like Metaverse, if you believe in the team behind it, if you believe in the idea of this game that the Metaverse is linked to, these are playable robot characters. If you look at the community, which we're about to go and do with Discord, you're going to start to see, as soon as I see the momentum start to come back up, this could be my buy signal to get back in, because maybe it's going to start heading back up again. So that's just something to be aware of, these sort of the buy and trade sort of volume of these things that's happening. I realize that we've been going for about an hour now, so I don't want to go too much more detail, but the one thing I do want to have a look at is community. So I'm just going to do my final look at NFTs now, and then I'm going to hand over to Priyanka to talk a little bit about whatever she's going to talk about. I won't spoil it there, but let's have a look at if you were to pick a project. So say you've done all that you've looked at, you've woken up, you've looked at the trade volume, you've seen one that's rising, and you go, this looks interesting to me. What would you do then? And this will maybe ask the question you were saying, like, what websites do I go and check? So this is what I would do if I was wanting to really look further into one project. After looking at its trade volume and sales and thinking now's a good time to get into it, I would then simply go and pick a name off Crypto Slam. So let's pick one that's doing well and that I'm not currently following. We could do Neo Tokyo is interesting. This is linked to Super Farm. I definitely think you should check out Super Farm if you haven't already. On One Force, interesting. So let's check this. Just check this out. On One Force. So what I'd do is Twitter is really the place that you want to start everything and finish everything through, because it really is the crypto place of choice. If you don't have one yet, please do start one of those. So here on One Force, I can search that. It's also good to sometimes check out, what people are saying about it. So you can scroll down and look at comments, look at tags. Is there people happy with it? If you start to follow people in the crypto scene, it can also be a good indicator of who's actually following. So On One Force has 62,000 followers on Twitter. Good follower base for starters. I am actually following them already. Also, it's followed by 227 people that I follow. So that is a legit follower base. Now, if I look down this list, there might be particular people, maybe Bored Ape holders, NFT reviewer who's got 2,000. So if there's some people that you respect in the scene, it could be Plan B, or it could be Punk, what's his name, 6259 or whatever. You'd have a look at what's the caliber of people. So this project here, Bored Mummy Waking Up, which is another NFT project that I'm following, they're also following this project as well. So that's kind of like a community verification, validation that you can do. Like, well, who is interested and who is actually following them? Then you might want to go to, for example, their website and check out the quality. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean anything these days with good web dev being quite easy to do. But you could have a look, and usually they've got what's called a roadmap. And your roadmap is essentially the list of promises. And you can go and have a look here. Are they delivering on what they said they were going to do? So that's what a roadmap is. You can also look at the team. Sometimes they don't want to dox themselves, which means show their documents and really say who they are. But you can follow them and check out their Twitter and sort of see, you might recognize the name from another project, which is always a good thing if they've had previous success. And then this little logo up here, if you're not familiar with it, is Discord. So I'm going to click Discord now. And this is really going to be the hub of their community. So I'm going to accept the invite. And it's probably going to open up my actual Discord app. Open Discord. So for those of you who, like I said, don't have Twitter, please check that out. And for those of you who don't have Discord, please also get started with that. So it's brought me now to Discord. You would usually bring me straight there. Maybe it's because I'm already following it. All of these dots down here are all the servers that I'm currently following. So that hasn't brought me through to the on one. That's a bit frustrating. Let's see, what's another project that we could look at?
Just click it again. Sorry, just click it again and see if it goes back to, because you're in the browser, not the app.
Oh, here we go. Great, on one force. So this is their particular server. So the way it works is all of these channels down here, all the different segments of information. If I wanted to click in, it would change my general thing I'm looking at here. You can also have a look at how many people are currently online. You can also have a look at the amount of engagement. Obviously, there's a lot of people chatting and that sort of thing. Now, because I've already joined the server, I kind of wanted to show you the verification process, but I'm already part of the server, so that we didn't get to go through that. I'm a part of a lot of different servers, as you can see. But generally what you'll have is you won't see as many channels here. And if you see that, it's usually just a matter of verifying yourself as not being a bot. So you'll usually have to do something like clicking an emoji. You might say, if you're not a robot, please click the eye emoji or whatever it is. And you'll click that, and magically, you'll see all of the other channels appear. So this is the other thing that I'd be looking at here, is to actually look at what their roadmap is, if they're delivering on it, looking at the type of community, like what sort of chat is actually going on. Are they very engaged? And then often they'll also have a sales bot. I'm not sure if these guys have a sales bot, but like, let's have a look at one of the other ones that I'm following. Say, for example, the glitches. They come down here, and can anyone see the sales? Might be over. Oh, there we go. OpenSea sales. So this is another good thing, is to see the regularity of trade. So this shows me that it was bought for 0.03 ETH. And once again, 0.3 ETH. Okay, cool, 0.3 ETH. That's interesting. We're starting to see a pattern, 0.28 ETH. So what you can see is that the current trade, the regular price, AKA the value that the market is seeing, is around 0.03, 0.04, etc. And that's what these guys are doing right at the moment. If you are interested in a particular sale, there might be a really big sale or something going on. You might want to actually go, and you can actually check out the wallet of the seller or the buyer. That's the thing about blockchain, it's also open. So in this case, the buyer is this person here. I can click on them, and I want to say, yep, I want to go check out their wallet. It's going to take me through to that person's account on OpenSea. And then I can see what they're collecting. So I go, okay, cool. So they are currently invested in these different projects. Interestingly, here they're invested in a token by 2476. 2476 is a female CryptoPunk, and so that is obviously showing that they kind of know about the CryptoPunk influencer. Maybe they're interested in women in crypto, etc. They've also got this one here which is the Diamond Hands Fairy. They've also got a female glitch. They've also got this other woman's one here. So you can kind of start to actually see by someone's type of collection, their kind of the cultural link into the crypto space and what they might be invested in. And if they've got a bunch of good investments, you might go, oh, they know what they're doing. They're buying into big projects or projects that I like. And so you can start to see, it's about who the project is backed by and what people believe in. So that's just, I guess, showing you, those are the key touch points that I would do to sort of get my head around whether or not I wanted to get into a project. Hopefully that makes sense. So just to recap, I'd look at Crypto Slam, look at the trade, see one that starts to move. I'd be attending many Twitter spaces, which is kind of like a Clubhouse audio drop-in space to hear the whispers on the street. What are people excited about? I wouldn't be FOMOing in, as in, fear of missing out. I wouldn't be FOMOing in onto a bunch of these mints that you'll be getting DMs regularly saying, oh, there's a new mint, there's a free to mint, quickly get in. So many things are minting. I kind of sit back and wait to see the community develop. And the way I check out the community is I'd always start at Twitter. I'd go and have a look at how many people are following them. I'd have a look at who is following them. I'd look at the kind of comment happening on Twitter. I'd go and check out their website. I'd look at their roadmap, and then I'd go through to their Discord. And the Discord is by and large the main, if not only, place that communities are held. I'll then look at the engagement there. Are they following through? Are they answering questions? Are they accountable? And then I'd look at their sales. You know, what's the regular price that's going? Like we went back with the Bored Apes Yacht Club, I'd have a look at the floor price. I'd also have a look at the recent sales, what's recently been put on the table. And I'd also look at the auction price, as in what bids are currently there, usually in WETH, to show this is the value that people are actually putting their money on the table to say, I value this much. And from all of those things, you can start to actually, that's like your due diligence, and do your own research. These are the kinds of things I would do. And then from there, I'd say, yep, cool, I'm comfortable in backing this. And from there, I'm going to pause now because I think I've been talking enough about NFTs. But after Priyanka talks, I will go a bit from the creator side of things, and I will talk a bit about, you know, how to foster community. And at the end, I'm going to be talking about the future of how these NFTs are going to link into the metaverse, almost like your driver's license. You know, having an NFT is really just your membership pass to a lot more beyond that. So thank you for that initial exploration into NFTs. And I'm going to hand that over to Priyanka. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Atlas. That was amazing. I learned so much from that, even being the NFT space. So I really appreciate you, brother. Hi, my name is Priyanka. I actually head up a Metaverse project. So that's my involvement in the space. Today, I wanted to touch a little bit about NFTs, but actually wanted to talk about the token side. I heard about NFTs back very early in the year. In fact, Atlas was one of the first people I spoke to about NFTs when I was looking at music NFTs. I've invested in a few projects. I've made mistakes. I've made some good investments. And the thing that I've learned, and the thing that I'm excited about, is that this is the start of a very big journey for the world, and how we interact with all forms of IP, proof of ownership, all of that. So if you're here, you're early. And it was so interesting. I mean, I heard about CryptoPunks when they were $20,000 each. I heard about Bored Apes early, and I guess I hesitated, and I kind of just go, oh, what if I did it back then? You know, what if I bought Bitcoin in 2011 when it was, you know, a couple of bucks? But sometimes it takes time to get comfortable in a space and to truly learn, you know, what it is before you go into it. Because for every Bitcoin, Bored Ape, you know, every Shiba token that goes off, there's so many things that don't. And I believe education is the #1 way of kind of, you know, making those bets. And I have been lucky to get on the ground floor of then projects that have taken off. So when you're looking at it, you know, from what Atlas said and what you guys have been learning, there's definitely the NFT part about participating, and then there's the token part. A lot of projects now, some of those projects that Atlas mentioned and beyond actually have both going on. So there's that existing token economy, and then there's the NFT economy, and those actually exist in very different ways. The benefit of participating on the token side is, if you're a crypto trader, this is something that's quite familiar to you, so it'll feel a lot more easeful. The journey to purchasing is quite simple. And also, more importantly, the journey to exiting is quite simple. Because the thing about NFTs is that it is a marketplace. And while, you know, unless you price it at the floor, you have to have some pretty good interest in the nuances of your NFT in order to make a sale. So what I love about tokens is that it follows maps and models that I've been used to for the last couple of years, since I began actively trading. And then it also allows you to sort of enter and exit at whim. And that I find very interesting. So I'm going to go through you know, the benefit of the space. So as I mentioned before, I'm in a gaming project, and if you look at the gaming industry, you know, we have a couple of billion people in the world playing games. I think it's like 2.5 billion or 3 billion gamers in the world. So, you know, just under half the world's population, wherever we're at. We have less than 1 million players on blockchain games, which means that the upside potential for blockchain gaming is just enormous. And then when we add on, you know, what is this concept of a metaverse, and Atlas kind of went on it, you know, it's about living in a particular online world and participating in different ways. So when you look at the fact that we're so early on gaming, you know, and you'd look at these mega trends, gaming is definitely going to become a mega trend. The benefit of blockchain gaming versus, you know, I guess some get the gaming business models that exist today is that, you know, it's so funny calling them traditional gaming models, because I for me, traditional gaming models was like Street Fighter in a you know, and sort of other games. So if you look at present non-crypto gaming revenue models, it's free to play, and then you buy items within the game in order to enhance your gaming experience. So they're called microtransactions within a game. So League of Legends is a game I'm somewhat more familiar with, and basically it's, you know, you kind of go into the game free, and then you can buy elements to enhance your gaming experience. Same thing with Fortnite and a few other games. And in mobile gaming, it works the same way. The downside of that is that economy exists within the game. So as long as you keep playing the game, you have value and you sort of exist within a world, but you can't actually trade those assets beyond it. So it's a closed system. What the problem that blockchain gaming solved was that suddenly you could trade those assets outside the game, which means that, you know, yes, it reduces loyalty to an extent in the game, but you're actually building value for yourself. So if you get in on the gaming token and you get in on the gaming NFT, you're sort of co-creating the participation, the governance of the game, and you have this opportunity to not only use your NFT, which I'll go into a little bit later, but you actually have an NFT that actually increases with value over time, and that is, given how early we are, I mean, that really came about this year, that has exponential value. And so to get onto the Genesis mints, the first mints of a game, is actually extraordinarily valuable. Genesis Kongs were an example of that. You know, if you own a Genesis Kong, you get tokens as well. So projects are actually giving favorable treatment to people that get on first mints, because these are like first investors into the game. So that's sort of how these gaming economies work. So I'm going to go through just checking I have share screen. I do have share screen. Thanks, Alice. I'm just going to go through, like, so how do you find the question I get a lot is like, how do you find these games? Like, where do you start? Like, how would you tell if a game token is worthwhile sort of investing into? So I'm going to go into a couple of themes that have been occurring in this niche called GameFi, or, you know, game finance or metaverse or whatever you want to call it. And in my interpretation at the moment, metaverse and gaming are somewhat synonymous with each other. I don't believe we have sort of extraordinary examples of metaverses beyond gaming. I mean, other than Mark Zuckerberg making a video and calling it a metaverse, which I don't fully subscribe to, in all honesty. I believe that this idea of a metaverse is sort of this co-created concept. In my understanding of the word, a proper metaverse has its own economy, has its own industry, has its own, it's basically an attention economy. And I think that I don't believe that any metaverse, you know, Atlas used the word interoperable. I don't believe there is no master of the universe here. Despite the fact that Facebook is trying their hardest to do so. I believe in the same way that at the moment I live in Australia, I could hop on a plane and easily go to Singapore or Thailand or any other country. And I think metaverses should be looked at in a similar way. At least that's my philosophy of how this sort of operates. So I'm going to show you my hack on how I find projects. I'm just sharing my screen right now. I go to CoinGecko as a sort of actually, I'm going to rephrase this. This is how I advise my clients. I am in the industry, so I do hear about projects before they get on these charts, but I'm not going to, that's too hard right now. So my coaching clients, I tend to say, look, go to CoinGecko. They've already kind of assembled top gaming coins. And when you're starting, I would focus on the top. The reason for this is because unless you're a very experienced trader and you understand the gaming space particularly well, and you might, so I'm not going to put presumptions, it might be difficult for you to actually assess, well, what is a project that's going to work and what's a project that's emerging. So I'm going to give you some sort of ways of interpreting some of that, but I'm going to actually just start at the beginning. So there are different themes occurring within this sort of gaming vertical of crypto. And I just want to preface, you know, when I was investing in crypto in 2019, 2016, 2017, we didn't really have anything beyond Bitcoin forks and a bunch of altcoins that you kind of knew a little bit about, but you didn't really go into. And now we've got DeFi, gaming, metaverse, like all these interesting things. So I'm excited about the fact that I can even talk about this in granularity. So anyway, back to the point. So we have gaming companies that have these sort of that have land-based sales. So an example of that is Sandbox. So Sandbox, you can is famous recently because Snoop Dogg did a concert in Sandbox. But Sandbox, if I was to go into it, sorry, should have prepared this earlier, but that's okay. You can actually buy land within Sandbox. And it's got its own market and it's got its own interface. But what's interesting about Sandbox is that it's sort of, I think it's got a ways to go. It's definitely a great metaverse because it's got that co-creation aspect to it. It's got a token called Sand, and it's a second token, you know, and there's, I think this is the start of something super interesting. If I was to assess this project, you know, just I do own Sandbox in full disclosure. What I really love about it is that there's multiple ways to participate. It's very much of that co-creating background. It's got its own marketplace. The UX I find is just quite simple to kind of understand what it does. I love the fact that they partnered with Snoop Dogg. I think there's something really interesting about the story there, and they've got these other sort of partnerships going on, which means they're trying to build real world applications within their game. And they have reasonable access. So this tells me about sustainability. I mean, if I look at Fortnite, they have similar strategy. So, and their fantasy islands, which is kind of the build aspect of Sandbox, is something that's kind of taking off. So you've got like the land, you can buy land, and you've got sand. So there's sort of a theme. So this is one of the major games. The market cap is 2.5 billion. So it's, you know, it's up there. And the question is, well, does this have upside potential? And I'd go, well, if you look at the nascent market of crypto, I definitely believe it's got a ways to go. You know, it's sort of at a really good point. In the whole year, it grew 7,000%. So, but even just past this month, 200%. So I think that there's a potential. And where I think what's interesting about Sandbox and Decentraland, which is a similar kind of play, where you've got land, is that these are interesting to me because real estate development, like virtual real estate development, I think is where we're going to start to see commercial participation in the metaverse space. So again, here you've kind of got a virtual land that's owned by its users. I'm not going to go into the granular detail because I can't bother connecting my wallet right now to every single one. But what I am going to tell you is that these are interesting because, you know, just like Sandbox did a concert with Snoop, you can sort of see virtual concerts develop as a credible use case. Facebook is looking at office spaces within these metaverses. Blocktopia actually did a tower and people took out office space within the tower. So there's a whole bunch of these land projects, which I find to be super, super interesting because the land is an NFT, but you can also buy tokens to participate in the governance of the project. So in the case of Decentraland, the token is called Mana. It went up 400% the minute Mark Zuckerberg announced its metaverse. And then the actual land, it's got its own NFT. So multiple ways to participate. And depending on where you bought that land, just like if you buy land in the real world, it's got, you know, appreciation value. And then it, again, like Sandbox, Decentraland has concerts as well. So there's got entertainment, you've got commercial opportunities for development, and you've got a token. So these are really beautiful, complex projects, which I find to be personally quite interesting. What I find interesting about, so both of these projects have raised a considerable amount of money. When I look at projects, I do look at what funds back them. Decentraland is backed by Digital Currency Group. Digital Currency Group also owns CoinDesk. And Grayscale Fund. So they've got deep pockets. So I would always look at a project that's sort of backed by, you know, pretty significant funds. Sandbox raised, I think, $72 million recently. So they've got quite a good runway of cash, which means that these projects will continuously have development to improve the user experience and to improve the revenue opportunities. So as a business, I'd look at that as like positive places to invest for the long term. You know, I'd be looking at Decentraland and Sandbox as very, very long-term plays because they have cash, and cash is king in the gaming space, definitely. So, you know, they're sort of the land things. Now, it was really interesting. I read something on Twitter recently that said, you know, just remember, in the real world, land is finite, and in the digital world, land is infinite. And I'd probably say to an extent that's true, but there is still a finite amount of land in key spaces that the metaverse deems to be valuable. And I don't think that can be ignored. That just like humans love to create hierarchy and status in every circumstance, I think that, you know, it's really important to say, like, yeah, you can buy a dodgy piece of land in Decentraland and it may not have any value. And it's the same way that if you buy something quite early, land quite early in a metaverse project, it's quite a high chance that might actually be, and you know, appreciate in value. So that's something I would, you know, look at. The second theme, so that was kind of the early themes. And that was a theme in February. So that sort of land thing was kind of hot then. And then, you know, and then we had Axie Infinity, which, you know, about a month or two later, kind of came in standing to breed. Right now. Okay, guys. I'm just okay, great. Perfect. We're back. So yeah, so the interesting thing about SLP, which is Axie's second token, is that people in the Philippines actually have used it to pay income, because the amount you can earn paying, if you're good at playing Axie, is more than, I guess, what you can earn in you know, I guess a lower paid job in the Philippines. But I want to point out, like, why is it perfectly justifiable to participate in the token if you do nothing else? And how is that contributing to the NFT trend? Because I just want to look at this chart and just look at very simple fact is, if you invested in Axie Infinity in June, which, you know, is not a relative, you know, not a huge amount of time for, $3.72. And then we've got it here, you know, the peak is 159. That's a very, very, very decent run up, and did a bit of a mini dip, and then it just kept going. And it has a ways to go, considering they just raised like $67 million, the development firm, and it's worth $9 billion at the moment. They just launched, they just sort of furthered their efforts into esports. And if you look at how big the gaming industry can get, you know, their revenue of Axie Infinity, I believe, is in the billions already. So, you know, market cap of 9 billion is not overpriced, given that there's utility. They have the governance token AXS, Smooth Love Potion is their currency. They have now launched a wallet, and they've got their own sidechain, Ronin, and then they've got Ronin Dex and the Ronin wallet. So they've built infrastructure. They're looking to then expand that infrastructure into other projects, to sort of, you know, as a bit of an immutable play. So there is a lot going on within this company that fundamentally would tell me that there's a bigger journey to be had, and a way to participate on the upside of this sort of NFT metaverse play could be just to create a basket of tokens within this sort of metaverse play. So that's Axie. If you want my personal brutal view, I think it's a shit game. I think that's one of its weaknesses. I think that the actual game itself is pretty average, but I think the business model and the market penetration is incredible. So I do think that they will probably eventually, you know, they've got land as well. I think that it's just by token, like, but by virtue of the fact that they have that many players and that much devotion to the community. They've got an amazing community manager. They've got a great, whether something else comes along to have a better experience, maybe, but like, I feel like they've gotten so much attention and time and investment of energy that this is something that is likely to stay. And then you've got, you know, an active trading marketplace. As you saw in the graphs that showed, they're the #1 NFT type being traded. So this is quite an intense thing happening. They've created their own economy, Axie, and they've created their companies that have been created as a result of Axie existing. There are people that have careers as a result of Axie being there. So they are definitely a paradigm shift into the play to earn, movement. And I think for that, because they've sort of put their line in the sand so strongly, I think for that it holds weight and strength and longevity. So that's my view on Axie. Of course, play to earn is going to keep going. I think it's a start, considering there are 1.4 million daily active users in crypto gaming, of which 1 million of those wallets are in Axie Infinity. So definitely they are grabbing, I think there was $2 billion in the last quarter earned in crypto gaming, of which Axie was, or 2.4, and I think Axie was 2. So they've definitely got the market share of the revenue. And so fundamentally as a company, that says a lot about them. I want to point out, so what happened as a result of Axie then coming into play is you have these guilds. So guilds are not new in gaming, but in blockchain they are. So Yield Guild Games actually came about it's basically a fund that buys the NFT and then rents it to players to sort of reduce that barrier to entry. Because in order to play Axie Infinity, you have to have a number of these Axies. So Yield Guild Games goes, right, we're going to make scholars. And what that means is we'll own the asset, we'll own the NFT, and then we will pay you a percentage. I believe they take 30% and give the player 70%. So it's basically like Uber coming in and going, well, we'll own the car. All you have to do is use the car and we'll pay you 70%. Works in the Philippines. I think there's going to be interesting movements in guilds in general, but Yield Guild Games was the first one that did that. Very smart play. There's been a number that have come around since. Market cap is, still under $1 billion. They're 582. And they've now diversified into other games. They're now looking at other tokens to really dominate that play to earn space. I actually think that, we've got a really good entry point into YGG right now, considering where the all-time high is and considering that gaming is only going to continue. But again, you've got to make your own decisions on your own trades. But I feel like guilds are going to continue, but Yield Guild Games has gone, being first mover. I believe they've got a good percentage of the market. What I also like about guilds is that they own assets. So as a business, I think it's fundamentally a good business to own assets that they can then trade. So there's something very smart about that play. As long as they service the players, that's a kind of another sort of vertical within this gaming of theme. And then the third theme or one of the other themes playing out is infrastructure. So Engine Coin is a wallet for NFTs. So again, I think this is a smart play, sort of building picks and shovels during the gold rush. And you look at where it is. So yeah, it's gone through a little bit. It's been around for, sorry, it's the wrong chart. These are all volatile tokens, but I would look at these plays and go, right, so I can put an investment into the infrastructure. I can put an investment into infrastructure such as the players, or I can put an investment into the game itself. And all of these will give you exposure to the space in a way that's quite clever. If I was to look at the other things that are really important, so let's see if CoinGecko actually recognizes this. So CoinGecko, you can actually look at things in terms of themes. So that's where I found this. Hang on. Right. And then I've completely lost category, sorry. Other things I would look at are actual blockchains that are built that have a bit of an NFT theme. Let's see if CoinGecko has actually done that. So I found the gaming one under the gaming theme. I believe they have a play to earn category. So again, if you wanted to go down that path and go, okay, cool, I think this play to earn thing is going to stick around, then I would look at CoinGecko, see what they've done in that space. I'll just let it load for a minute. And while that loads, I'm just going to check if anyone's got any questions. Kevin or Atlas, have there been any questions that need to be addressed?
Nothing so far.
Okay, cool, awesome. Okay, yeah, so if we look at this play to earn, Axie this is so weird because Axie is the only one I'd say is legit right now. God's Unchained to an extent. Yeah, so I'd probably say out of all of these, I think Axie's got the most defined play to earn economy. But I think it's interesting, and you could definitely do an investment across those. But let me just find, let's see, I might just have to search it if I can't find it here. Okay, I'll just search on CoinGecko. So another sort of key token that's sort of built for, there's a few, but Tezos is definitely one. So Tezos is one of those chains that's built for NFTs. This is a green project. So I know it because I invested in a fund that invested in a bunch of NFT projects, and one of them is built on Tezos. So there's a few NFT projects kind of built on this one. Another one is Theta. So when you're looking at it, you go, okay, cool. Well, do I want to? Theta Network is another one. Katy Perry did a collaboration with Theta, or she built something on Theta Network. So these guys are built for filming as well. So these are blockchains that have got certain themes going on, and they focused on this particular category. So I'd be looking at that as well. The ones that are as I mentioned before, Axie Infinity just created their Ronin DEX. So that's another infrastructure opportunity to participate in the Axie project. Let's actually see if the coin, here we go, it is listed now. So if you wanted to kind of get in on the ground floor on something that's quite emerging, I would use the Ronin DEX. So go onto Axie Infinity, use the decentralized exchange called Ronin, which involves buying Axie tokens. And the reason I would do that is because it's likely, also because they do have usage rewards. So you'll get to participate in Ronin tokens, which means that in time, those will likely appreciate in value. And then the other one is Immutable X. So this is actually an Aussie company called Immutable. They have the game Gods Unchained. And so as they develop these games, they then created their own infrastructure. This is one that Gary Vee's invested in, and a few other big investors. It is a bit of a nightmare to buy. The market cap's already $1 billion, which is very impressive. A nightmare because I don't participate much in centralized exchanges. But if you've got an account in Gate or FTX or OKX, then this one's quite straightforward to participate in. I think that I think there's a lot of hype. My personal view on Immutable X is there's a lot of hype. They've signed a lot of partnerships. I don't know how many of them have actually, are going to come through. But they did some NFT projects like Moody Crows. So, there's definitely some potential. I think they listed at 6, and it's under that list price. So yeah, I definitely think that this is something to watch for the long term, like Ronin, something that's emerging. And they've got a lot of projects building on it. And of course, I think one of the OGs in this space is called Flow. So Flow is the blockchain developed by Dapper Labs, and they created NBA Top Shots. Flow actually has quite a few projects being built on it. They've got a partnership with Google. Shopify just signed a deal with them. So they've got a lot of projects in the next couple of years being built on Flow. I invested in a fund that got into a few rounds with Flow. And I definitely think that this is a project. I definitely always believe in investing in infrastructure alongside investing in the thing itself. So that's a sort of, I don't want to kind of talk too much to it. I want to leave some space for chat, but that's a bit of a quick overview of the sort of interesting themes emerging in this gaming metaverse space. I'm going to let Atlas chat a bit about games, and then I'm going to talk about a few emerging projects. But I wanted to leave some space for questions as well and have a bit of a discussion on what I just said, and I hope it is helpful. And you're on mute, Atlas.
Thank you so much. Welcoming questions both from my section on the NFTs and also the section of tokenomics and gaming. Thank you so much for taking us into the backstage area and this very interesting area of how to get involved in the industry. Often we think we have to be a consumer. I need to go and play the game. I need to buy the NFT, but looking at how to invest in the infrastructure and participate in the community, investing or staking your coins, all that kind of thing is maybe a way. And as you said, maybe more liquidity, because of course with an NFT, if no one wants to buy it from you, then there's no way of getting out. Whereas with the coins, it's just another cryptocurrency yet linked to this very burgeoning area of NFT and gaming. So yeah, thank you so much.
Especially the infrastructure, like you know, buying Flow, Immutable X, Tezos, Engine, like that means that it's buying like an ETF. Your thesis is that this space will increase, which we both know it will. Therefore, making investments into the infrastructure and supporting the infrastructure will then, you know, you experience it might be occasionally slow, it might be occasionally fast, but there's you're mitigating a bit of that risk in investing in specifics, and also less time hunting. But you know, the hunting is fun too.
And also less time playing.
Yeah. So where do you so Sadra, where do you invest in funds? Yeah, so in that sort of venture capital space where I've, you know, had exposure to VCs, you can you get access to deals. So I can't go into granularity, but I'm going to show you something actually that I forgot, was in my head and then I completely forgot to show you. This is a way of investing. Sorry to drop the Q&A for a second, but I'm just going to show you this and then we'll go back to Q&A. So, or this is kind of part of Q&A. So Index Coop has is the index funds of crypto, and they actually have an index token called the Metaverse MVI, Metaverse Index. And this is a really good way of sort of getting, again, letting someone else decide what assets are emerging while you're still learning in space, but, you know, participating in the token and getting a bit like they've chosen, they've done the due diligence, they've chosen these basket of tokens, and, you know, some of which are the ones I mentioned, like Axie Infinity, Decentraland, Engine Coin. And so you're kind of then outsourcing the picking of it to them. And by buying this, it's just quite simple. You connect your wallet and you swap your ETH DAI or USDC on the Ethereum network. You could just basically hold that and have this participation as you would investing in a mutual fund. And that could be one way of you taking advantage of what's happening in the market. So that's something that I've told people, like, if you don't really want to go through the due diligence of Metaverse gaming, just buy MVI and hold that. And that's a way of, you know, and obviously you've got to make the financial decisions for yourself. But another way you could do, if you wanted to take it further, is look at what they've invested in and maybe just extend your investments in those tokens so that you can experience sort of a deep dive into the space and sort of pick and choose, like a picking mix of what's kind of hot right now. Yes. I hope that yeah, so they originated the DPI as well. Yeah, so I really like Index Coop. I think they're amazing. Thoughts on Engine Coin and price prediction for next? I don't do price predictions. I think that's really good for psychics and astrologers, so I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to say in very brief terms on any of these projects, look, I do think there's going to be a correction next year of whatever percentage that's going to be. I don't know, but I think if I was to look at it in 5 years, this is the one emerging sector that you kind of go, this is like buying Bitcoin in 2013. You know, this is a very emerging space. There are tokens that are coming about, that some of which will continue, some of which won't, but overall the space will only grow given how early we are. So it's good to kind of make sure that you have exposure. And I have a separate portfolio just for gaming and Metaverse. It's definitely been my highest performer. So yeah, definitely worth kind of making a play. So that's on that side. Did anyone else have any questions on anything that Atlas and I spoke about?
And as a heads up, in case there are any questions about being a creator, before I go directly into games, I'm going to address a little bit about the creation of NFTs from that artistic side of view as well.
What specifically about Star Atlas did you want to know, Sadra? And I'm going to cover it later. So that's a good question.
Perfect. Cool. Wonderful. You answered the questions in the presentation. So I'll grab the mic back and I will go a little bit into what NFTs can do and then directly how they start to link into this idea of gamification. So let's all it's so exciting. I find myself talking really quickly. So I'm just going to have an intentional aspect of slowing myself down. Also wanting to make sure that anyone who is being a little bit overwhelmed by the trader financial part of what we presented so far, both Priyanka and I have shown you charts, and it can come across as quite a clinical way to invest or not to invest as a trader. But I also want to look at the creative and the community side of these things. So when you're looking at a new tool, if you're an artist, you're picking up a paintbrush, looking at paint, you're looking at the stretchiness of the fabric. What do you know how to do really well? Are you a really good storyteller? Are you really good at making lines that have personality? Are you a choreographer who captures movement? And I think it's really important as a creator of NFTs, not someone who's collecting, but someone who's making, to stick to your wheelhouse and either use pre-made tools. Don't reinvent the wheel, because there's so many plug and play widgets or bits of code or functionality that is there in the infrastructure of these things. So really know what you are good at, and then just ask questions. Ask me, ask friends, form your own collective, whatever it is, to make sure that all the other points can be covered. The next thing you need to know is to learn your tool. So I am encouraging you to stick to your original medium, but of course, you know, if you're stepping into the crypto space and into NFTs, these programmable tokens, like it's like, wow, well, let's at least honor the space and see what these things can do. So I'm going to go a little bit into the different types of tokens and these standards. It's really about the standardization, meaning in some ways the limitation and the agreements that are so important. Because the computer can create anything. We can have physics that go upside down. We can have infinite number of lands, whatever it is. But it's when we start to form a common language that things become interoperable. And that's why it's so important to have these kind of agreed upon standards, which an NFT is one such thing. So we've got these ERC tokens and agreements of how to improve Ethereum or how to use Ethereum. So I'm going to do a screen share here again and look at some of these things. So here we have crypto kitties. Is that coming across for everyone? Assume it is, let me know if it's not. So here we have the idea of standardization, which is what I was talking about. We agree that we are going to code it in a certain way. It's going to have these parameters, and therefore the different tokens can talk to each other. They can be stored in a standard way. And when we start to have this standardization, it can be interoperable. So imagine as a player, if you've been fighting a dragon, you upgrade your sword. What happens if you want to go to someone else's game? Can you then take your sword with you? Or what happens if you've just been chatting a lot in social media and you've helped people a lot? You've given a lot of value, like in Reddit, you know, being upvoted. Can you take those upvotes and all that kudos and that social capital and convert it across to something else? If it becomes a token like an NFT, then those items and then that money, so to speak, all of these activities start to be aggregated into this one identity, this digital decentralized identity, which can then exist in multiple platforms, multiple games, all because it's interoperable. So you hand me a sword, and because it's got the standardized way of being encoded, I go, okay, cool, I know how to plug that in. From a creator's point of view, it might be something simple like, well, actually, I need to make sure I've got my X and Y axis in the right way. I've got to have a hold point. So regardless of which game it's going to happen, each character can hold it in the same way. So there are some kind of technical aspects that you need to think with as well. It's also got immutability, which means I'm not going to be able to change it after the fact. If I hand it over to you, it's yours. And so even if the company collapses, or I want to say, actually, no, I didn't give it to you, it's clearly on an open ledger. Well, actually you did, and you can't go and change it now because it actually needs to be verified on a blockchain by validators in order to be changed. So it's very hard to do that. Also tradable ownership, which brings in scarcity and brings that very important element, which relates to the finiteness of the real world in our bodies. So we can start to bring that tradability and value into the metaverse as well. Provable scarcity, obviously, because it's a one of one and it's a particular token. And then you've got programmability. I'm going to be going into a lot more about the programmability potential of NFTs in coming Twitch streams with the Crypto Collective. But just have a think, if you were to collect your Bored Ape or your Pudgy Penguin or Lazy Lion, imagine if it remembered all its owners, or not even, let's not say owners, let's say inhabitants, because kind of you wear the skin of you are the Lazy Lion. And that's a really big difference in immersive entertainment. If you watch a video, you talk about how, you know, blah, blah, Jack Nicklaus or whoever was the actor was involved, Wesley Snipes, whoever it was, they did this thing, they went on an adventure. But what happens if you play a game? It's I went, oh, I was there in the castle. Oh, I did this amazing thing. I was stealth mode and I climbed under the bridge or whatever. And so there's this real idea of being an inhabitant. So imagine an NFT remembered all of the ghosts in the machine, remembered all the souls in the body. And this is where you start to have AI connecting in with NFTs. And so though you could actually have a conversation with these NFTs, they could actually, talking about the value of these memberships, these cultures that we create, they could start to speak like the people in the chat rooms. They could start to do parsing, which means sort of to go through in a code level and look at all the language. and start to have the personality of that particular membership club. So you can have these INFTs, or these intelligent AI-driven NFTs as well. So there's so much scope for programmability in NFTs. And I'll leave it there, but there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in that space. When it comes to these standards, you've got this Ethereum request for comment, ERC, and this particular one is the non-fungible token, which says, where did it come from? How is it transferred and who owns it? Really simple. I have the cat. It's my cat. You want to buy the cat, I'll pass it over to you. You also got ERC 1155, which is the classes of assets. So for example, if I had, or in this case, I've got a cat and it wants 3 bowls, or if I was, for example, a soldier and I want a bunch of different swords or guns, or if I'm a general and I want to have a fleet of 1,000 ships or soldiers or whatever it is, I can have these classes. It's like a group of a lot of repeatable things. So they're not necessarily unique like an NFT, but they are semi-fungibility. Fungibility, I mean, please, look up these words. It's to do with the idea of swappable, consumable, these kind of things, like our normal cash. So this has got semi-fungibility because you've got the NFT, but you've also got classes of assets attached to that character or NFT. Then you've also got something which is called composable, so ERC 998. And in this case, you might have, for example, the food in the bowls. So this is something, or like you might have petrol in the tank of the car. And this can actually be refilled and emptied. And so you've got this way of actually have these fungible assets and non-fungible assets together in one standard or one sort of token. But the key thing here, just to move on, so that we're learning the nature of this tool, yeah? So you might, as a storyteller, you might go, oh, yeah, I've got a character and they own this particular asset, and then you need to feed them a sandwich every day to do this, or whatever it is, you might breathing air, whatever these sort of things. They're all housable in these tokens. But the most important thing is, what is your brand culture? What is the experience of being in community? Because we're tokenizing the culture, not necessarily the commodities. And when you look at things like Kickstarter, when you look at things like YouTube, when you look at games like Minecraft, the huge value is in the user-generated content. It's all about us getting involved, becoming super fans, being really invested in the story, owning a stake in the game. And any games that are resisting, and we'll talk a lot more about games in a second, but any games that are resisting giving over their intellectual property, their IP, I think they're just, putting a stranglehold on the potential lifeblood that people will have when they have their own stake in the IP. They own the character, it's theirs. They can go, I'm not sure if you know Red and Blue, but it was a whole YouTube series based on Halo characters. So you can actually tell these stories based on your NFTs. For example, the characters in the Jeep on CryptoSafari are all NFTs I own. And so I've got this idea, I'm going to start telling a story with my NFTs and my characters. So I love these people. They're like my family. As a child, I used to have my teddy bears and stuff. And now my NFTs are like those. It's my peeps, it's my crew. So that's the sort of love and investment and ownership you'll get when you open out to your communities. So looking here, this is CyberKongz, and this is kind of a roadmap to show you the way you can transition from an NFT to extrapolate it out into a full metaverse experience. So for example, you've got the PFP, profile picture Kong here, the Genesis, meaning the original one. And then you have a look down here to, for example, Banana Shop. So you can actually have an internal currency and you can actually buy and trade and swap things for your characters. And then they also went into an auction and got some sandbox land. So Priyanka was talking about this real estate idea. So they've actually got Kong's Island, which is a place in Sandbox. And now they've also got this other iteration, which is the voxel version of Kong's. So CyberKongz VX, which is essentially like a 3D rendered, it's kind of like a 3D pixel in some ways, a voxel version of your Kong, which can now, they're promising will be able to be this character in the metaverse. So that just kind of shows you the way that these things link in and start to back on to a much bigger story world in these places. So when you start to look at the experience you're going to give people, I'm going to start to talk a little bit about game design now. And you want people to be able to connect with your story in the ways that really make sense to them. For example, this is Bartle's player types. You've got some people who are killers. And as you can say, they like to interact with players and they like to take action. You've also got some people who are achievers. They like to take action, but it's more about them interacting with the world, ticking off all the boxes, getting all the collectibles, achieving all the side quests. Then you've got people who are more socializers, and those people are more interested in the players and interacting, not acting or taking action, but interacting with people. And then you've got explorers, which is probably what I would be involved in as a player type. And that's people that are interested in interacting with the world, going and finding other areas of the map that they don't know, and just having that intrinsic reward of learning, growing, having more impact, feeling more powerful, and just feeling that evolution by interacting in the world. So that brings me to this idea here of intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. The extrinsic rewards is here on the left. This guy just won this race. He's got like, yeah, you're the best. Probably gets a trophy. Like, people think I'm good. It's the external validation of what you're doing. And games do that by giving you a cherry or a gold star and that sort of thing. But this is, from my mind, like a more of an old way of thinking about game design, because we can only hit the pallet button to be fed so many times before we just don't want to play the game anymore. It's like, it's nice to be patted on the back, but after a while, your back gets sore. Instead, the one on the right is the intrinsic validation. This person running on a treadmill by themselves, they feel that the breathing gets easier. They feel it's easier to get up in the morning. They have more self-respect. When they go down the shops, they get there quicker back and forth. They start to feel their avatar, or in this case, a real world body, starting to get more and more powerful, more and more influential. And that is just a natural bliss state that opens up. The endorphins, the dopamine come from a different thing, not just from the extrinsic rewards, but from a sense of well-being. So that's really what I'm encouraging people to look at when we start to design these worlds, is how can you tend to the different player types? If you've got any kind of brand, I'd really encourage you to make sure that you don't necessarily call them killers, but it's like people that maybe call them thrillers, people that want to take action to do with sometimes interacting with them, maybe even against other people on the playing field of your brand. And so just really think laterally and creatively about how each of these type of engagement measurements interact with something that you can bring. Another aspect is the IPOP method, which stands for ideas, people, objects, which is the visual, learning, and physical. So if you're a brand holder, think of the ideas you promote. Some people are very conceptual, other people more social, and they just want to love you as a person or the community that they're part of. Other people are visual learners and want to have visual beauty in your branding, but also want to understand the visual map of, when I'm starting with you, where are we going, and have I achieved progress by training with you? And the last one is the physical, particularly in the metaverse. Are you giving them tactile things, which can be beautiful? Sometimes with my clients, I might get them to set up a particular thing in their physical space or mail them something so that when we're having a digital experience, there's something to hold. Maybe, it's a deck of cards, and so that you've got your characters. There's something that I can have a tangible hold on. Not essential to everyone, but, and this is a model that came out of the Smithsonian Museum after witnessing thousands and thousands of people engaging with the exhibits, they found that this is how people learn. So this is sort of what we're looking at when we're designing things as a game designer. But at the end of the day, what's your squad goals? What is your community? And I saw someone earlier asking, what's the actual value of the Bored Ape, for example? Why is it worth so much? It does come down to ego in some ways. It's a flex, like owning a Bored Ape now, kind of. And there's some people think that they're geniuses or OGs or wizards in the space simply because they own that. It really just means you had enough money to buy one. But once you've got that inner circle, you can really cultivate the culture. You can actually be on the inside circle of some really important conversations and alpha leaks, like the inside knowledge of what's happening. You can also start to counteract a very real danger of big whales, people with big pockets coming in and starting to manipulate the market, because it's not the same as a coin. For example, CryptoPunks, just my understanding of it, or my opinion, purely opinion, is that they've got their own internal economy going on. And you don't necessarily have a right to come up and just take it off someone like you would on a decentralized exchange with a coin, just by doing a swap. You've got to ask for access into that community. And so more and more, as bigger industries and banks and stuff start to come involved, we can create a guarded community based on ideals. We might be based on environmentalism, on equality, on whatever it is, creativity, on whatever our sort of community is. And you can hold tight, and you can hold the floor, aka the value of your tokens. And you can even start to have your own trading economy internally. Hey, I'll do this for you. Cool. Can you buy my CryptoPunk off me? And you start to have this sort of trade and exchange. I'm not giving that as advice. I'm just saying this is what can happen in economies when we start to use our NFTs as something that we actually hold. And it's a really different way of thinking about what is the value of this thing. We can declare the value, and that sure, it is subjective to value. But when you start having communities with people interacting and businesses having their internal economies, these things can really have a lot of real value. So coming back to the artistic side of things, well, cool. I already have a good community. I know I'm a great facilitator and coach. People break down and cry every time I do coaching with them, whatever it is, there's this human value. And so now how can I translate that across to an NFT? So I'm going to do a screen share here again to have a look at, let's just go straight to OpenSea. I'm going to escape there. Oh, Decentraland. Okay, cool. I'm talking about that in a second, but let's go straight to OpenSea. So there are a lot of marketplaces with different functionalities and different types of NFTs, but OpenSea is a really easily accessible one, and it is by far the biggest Ethereum-based marketplace. Of course, it would be great to have a blue tick, and if you're going to collect on OpenSea, I highly recommend getting a verified account, as in buying off a verified account, but we're not going to start there. But where we are going to start is at a very simple place where you connect your MetaMask wallet. So you create a profile. We are going to send through a description of how to do that. But essentially, once you've actually connected your wallet, you have a profile just like this. Atlas Talisman, got some NFTs I've collected there, but I can actually also be a creator. So I'll create here, and here you go, create new item. So you've already created it. You've made it in whatever software or capture device you like, a JPEG, normal image file, a GIF, like a moving kind of image, SVG, which is vector file, MP4, like a video. You could also come along here to an audio, OGG or WAV, or you could even do a GLB. So you could start to actually have 3D objects or characters, rigged things that you might have made in Blender or another project. And so you simply, click there and upload that file up to a maximum of 100 megabytes. And so I'm sure a lot of our art can be encapsulated in one of these file formats in under 100 megabytes. So you upload it there, give it a name. You can give an external link to your website or whatever it is, give a description of what the thing is. You might want to have a collection of different things, shoes, hats, portraits, landscapes, whatever it is. And you can give it properties as well. Like these are my night skies. These ones are the ones that have whatever, golden tooth, whatever the thing is. You can also do unlockable content, which only the owner of it can unlock. And number of supply, how rare is it going to be, what blockchain are you using, Ethereum, and then you're going to create. So most of us are used to these kind of, if you've created a profile on any kind of social media platform, you've probably done a similar thing, uploaded a profile picture, given yourself a name, done a bio, etc. So I just wanted to show you, if anyone's intimidated into getting into the space and making an NFT, that's how simple it is to actually mint something on OpenSea. Another really important thing to realize is you can do what's called a soft mint. So if you're going to mint it yourself, you might have to pay a gas fee to instantiate the token to actually get it on blockchain. The reason for that we covered in detail yesterday, but just to briefly go over it, essentially someone needs to get paid to validate this transaction happens and actually put it onto Open Ledger and add it to the block of the blockchain. So that's why you've got these big things called gas fees, which are variable. And that's someone actually doing like the mining, so to speak, and verification and validation of the transaction. You can also do a soft mint, which is basically you attribute that gas fee to the first buyer. So you list your product for sale, and then the first person that comes along kind of mints it for you. They pay the gas fee to turn it into an actual on-chain token. So you don't have to have a lot of expenditure when you're making these things in the startup. You can put a bunch of stuff and just see how you go, see how it sells. OpenSea, however, is not the only place to sell. You might also want to go to something like async art. And the reason I really like it is it's very simple. If you will use layers or Photoshop, you can do this, but they're starting to have some kind of behavior in the NFT. So a simple thing that people are using a lot at async.art is night and day cycles. So as you can see, there's a version of that pencil mountain at night and a version in the day. Similar with, I had a few up here as an examples. This one here, for example, has a few different states. You've got sunset, night, sunrise, and day. So as an artist, you can imagine maybe you've got birth and death. Maybe you've got different emotions. Your NFT is angry. Your NFT is hungry, but like a Tamagotchi, you've got these kind of behaviors which start to come in. So that is not necessarily a detailed programmable thing. It has programmable behavior, but all you're doing is creating 4 different versions of the same image, and it asks you, cool, what to upload here, what to upload here, what to upload here, etc. So that's kind of the way I wanted to see it as creators. We're kind of doing this dance between what we do already. We might be a photographer. We'll take a photo in the morning and night, you know, and then you upload it, and all of a sudden you're leveraging the power of the intelligence of this space. So to bring it now into the big potential of the way I see these things are going, is that you are asking people to participate as a form of currency. You're making money, but how is that working? Well, people are starting to create and invest. For example, there's a game I play called Blanco's Block Party, and I have a character. You run around, it's free to play, easy entry point. It's like any platformer game, you know, if you played Little Big Planet, it's like a little sack boy running around, jumping on things. But as you level up, you get to design your character. And simply by playing, I level up the capacity to add my creativity to it. And then I can put that little character on the marketplace and I can sell it. A key part of the economics of NFTs is you can embed in the code a royalty system. So not only are you benefiting from the first sale, but everyone who sells it after that, you get your percentage. Now, looking at OpenSea, it's roughly around 5 to 10% of royalty that you'll get every time you sell it. So this is also how people can do free to mints. Like, well, how can you just give things away apart from gas fee? How can you just allow people to have your NFT? Bored Ape Yacht Club, for example, the person that minted that, or what about the originator project? Every single time it's sold, now for hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're getting a little slice of that pie. And that's how the economy can kind of roll forward. If you wanted to get really technical, you can also embed some kind of economics involved where you might be able to stake the NFT, meaning that you sort of invest it back in the network, and maybe it could be a governance token, meaning that if you hold the NFT, you get to have one vote, or the number of votes of NFTs that you hold can be your power in deciding the direction that the story takes or the direction the whole company takes. And we can then build the whole game world out into something that becomes a DAO, or decentralized autonomous organization, that is really literally driven by the decisions of the holders who have invested in the NFTs or the tokens of that particular project. So that's the sort of the way that we can really build this going forward. And that's where we start to lead into, well, what is this actual token going to allow me to do? I'm going to quickly show you a few other options. For example, Decentraland, I showed you there a second ago as well. So Decentraland in this option here is showing the correlation between my social life online and my physical embodied life in real person. So here in Decentraland, they've got this gallery, for example, where you can look and flex at all the NFTs you've collected, but you can also go to Domino's Pizza and buy a pizza, which then gets drone, I think it was drone delivered for a while, maybe just a good old fashioned truck. I don't know, but the actual real world pizza gets delivered to your real world address, and your real world body gets to eat. So this is the way that we can start to have a lot of brands, and, you know, there will be a lot of consumerism. There will be a lot of, you know, old world capitalism in the space as well. So of course, as game designers, we don't want to have it too overpopulated with that sort of thing, but those things do currently exist in the space as well. And so I wanted to round it off now with a little bit of an idea before we go further into games, into myself as a player. So looking at this idea of sovereignty, of decentralized identity, this comes into privacy as well, and autonomy over your information. So you might have something like a university giving you a certificate, which then gets locked up behind your own keys, and you get to decide who gets to share that information. You might also have, for example, your medical records, etc. And that all gets stored in a user identity, like a Web3 identity hub, which you have access to. Or in the case of a network, and this is really exciting to be a part of the infrastructure of the network itself, you can be a node holder as well. So what that means is that the actual backend, the computer server that's holding all the data about these things, is distributed across the user base. So rather than having Amazon or Google holding all the info, all the users themselves actually hold it. So when we look at something like Ethereum, this is becoming a little bit unwieldy. If you're a node in the network, it means you have a copy of every single transaction that ever happened on Ethereum. And so that's why they've got something that's called sharding, like a shard of glass, and they're starting to split it up into, so you don't actually have to hold the whole thing, you can hold a part thereof. They've also got another thing called ZK rollups, which is where you'd rather than having a transaction fee for every single communication that goes back and forth, you can bundle them up together and just have one transaction that attributes to a number of different transactions that are happening. So this technology is always evolving. And I think that's a really key part, is when we start to create these worlds, sure, you can be a content creator, but can you get in on the ground level? And this is another aspect of finance. So for example, I have a friend that I helped get into Gala games, and he's got now a node in the Gala network. Gala games create many, many games. And that is essentially the operating system that when you're playing, you're clicking your game, his computer is running a little bit of that experience. And then he gets a constant yield of Gala tokens, which at the moment, I think is around 8 or 9 cents. And then because I referred him to actually go and buy the node, I also get passive yield in my wallet as well, which in the form of Gala, which then I can convert into whatever I want. So this is the space that we're in. Hopefully it's making sense. I can keep talking. I've got a little bit more I want to share about games. As far as the time goes, I know we're bumping on to 2 hours now. I have a feeling we might go for another 45 minutes actually. So we'll probably bump up to around the 3-hour mark. Feel free to leave if you need to. I'd love you to stay on to keep energy in the container. But all of this is being recorded just to remind you. So you will be sent a copy of this entire thing. Opening to questions about gaming if anyone wants in the space. But let me just take a step back and say, as a brand owner, even if you're not an artist, the way I feel that we are starting to approach NFTs. We're looking at our community and the human value as the essence of the value intrinsic to the NFT. The NFT is the unique, scarce thing in an infinite world. The metaverse, you can make anything as much as you want, but the NFT is rare and scarce. So by asking someone to buy an NFT, you're really asking them to have faith in the project and the longevity of your community. Trust in you as a creator that you're going to keep coming and showing and giving value in an ongoing way. When they own the NFT, it's provable that they do own it because you can check their wallet and now they're a holder. You can also see when they bought it. And you can also give very simple, like with Discord, very easily give them access to certain things based on their ability to hold that sort of thing. You can also attribute a bunch of other metaverse content in the inventory linked to that identity. So the way I see it going is that we're going to be these free roamers across multiple universes. I personally would use the word metaverse to be the singular skin that wraps everything together, because that's really the value of the metaverse and Web3, is that it's interoperable and we're all connected. No longer do we have to be living in all these silos and be heroes in one space and scum or just a villain in another space. All of our contribution, and this is an increasing shift in our contribution as part of society, comes from simply showing up and partaking in community, chatting to friends, helping each other out, holding a node in the network, adding my creativity to something someone else made by giving it a different paint job. All of these ways we can simply live, and more simply playing will become a career. So as a creator, that's what I'm going to attribute value to. And I'm going to start feeling, how can I talk to everything? I think a really important conversation is, what is the interoperability? Let's have a unique, singular inventory. If I'm going to have a character that has a sword, or if I'm going to have a cat that has a bowl of food, there's a thing called a schema, which is essentially the way that you have top-level data categories. Like, what's the overall schema for the metaverse? That one dictionary that we can all refer to. And so if I'm going to have a character from your world, I'm going to want to know a name. I'm going to want to know which way they're facing. I'm going to want to have a particular format of structure. I'm going to want you to have the textures labeled in some particular place. I'm going to want to have your points, your power, your currency kept in a particular file format and in a particular way. Are you dealing in millions and I'm dealing in thousands? How do we translate those two different things? So I think that's a really important discussion at the moment, is the interoperability between brands. If for example, project lead on a project called Ethereum Party, and I would like to know if a Bored Ape wants to come to our party world, like, how can I import their JPEG and how can I bring in all the behavior from their community into my world? So that's an ongoing conversation, but I think that's really at the pinnacle of where we are going with this whole thing. And so I would say that the NFT is like your driver's license, your ID, your passport to the world. And more we're going to have this stash of everything that comes with us from one space to the next. So hopefully that's making sense. There's obviously unlimited stuff to chat about with this stuff. I'm all very passionate, but I'd love to open to some questions. before I go into anything more about gaming, and I'll hand back to Priyanka to talk about some specific game projects like Star Atlas, Illuvium, Axie Infinity, that kind of thing. Any questions from the crowd? And also really interesting to hear, I'd even be happy to do like a quick 2-minute, 3-minute chat, almost like a free consult on any creators in the space who are thinking about getting into NFTs and had any kind of blind spots or questions about how what you do relates to something which could be tokenized or valuable in the metaverse.
Should we maybe just check in with people's cameras and see who's actually listening?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff?
totally. If you're here, feel free to turn your camera, come on stage.
Break,
Hello.
have a bit of a shake.
Have a shake, get embodied.
Yeah.
Hey Atlas, my video won't let me go in again. I don't know what's happened, but apparently you're blocking me out of the videos.
Yeah, I had enough of you, mate. No, I'll ask you to start video. Let me know if that changes it. There you go. Yes, Spider-Man in the house. Yeah, let's do a bit of that. Let's do a bit of shaking.
There's some of the things you can do with NFTs, so I just thought.
Oh,
So that whole embodying the Ready Player One sort of thing with avatars, and everything looks a little bit janky at the moment, but as technology progresses and people ideate and create, you can do all these things. Like some of these graphics are pretty cool. I'm a monkey. I'm Maleficent. There are multiples of me in the mushroom space. You can do a whole bunch of
Love it, Kevin.
Things like you saw the Axies before, or the Bored Apes, Roblox games like that, where you can start bringing in skins. There's just
What's
awesome.
it called, Kevin? It's called Snapshot, isn't it?
This is Snap Camera. It's just a way to sort of import your AR, so augmented reality or 3D sort of avatars and things like that. It's just a filter at the moment, but it's kind of like a stepping stone into what people can do in future to basically have their digital identity and maintain that persona in the metaverse. So all that whole Ready Player One type stuff. Anyway, had a bit of a shake, so let's get back into it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Love to see. I love those those worlds, and we start to see how susceptible we are to storytelling and how passionate and attached we get to characters. So I would love to throw to anyone who's a creator, storyteller, and events. We can even talk to Earthbeat about the festival space. I've created festivals myself and know how important the community is. But please, pop off questions about your particular product or service and how we might relate it back to NFTs.
I would love to jump in the space and ask some questions. Thank you for everything today. I'm an artist. My art is generally more spiritual, or I do like energetic transmissions. I paint portals, I paint people's energy. And I'm kind of at the point where I've only been exploring this space for a couple of months. So it's all still very new. And I've noticed that, I'm an artist and I'm trying my best to get into the technical stuff, which I'm not very fluent in yet. I guess I'm kind of like, where do I start? Because a lot of the people that would be my niche or my market are not in the space. So how would I create value for a community that aren't here yet? Where do I start in terms of where I'm at and what I'm doing?
Amazing. Yeah, I think you're in a perfect position. And I thank people like you who have a community that aren't crypto literate. And you are going to do some hard yards. You're going to have to be the person that's going to go out into your community and translate all we've said. And, we're here, like I said, just to reiterate, twitch.tv/crypto collective. Every single day, there is a fountain to drink from, and we're going to keep giving you the value. But you are going to be the mouthpiece for that particular community. So essentially, I would just say, understand why you like the metaverse, like why you'd want to even exist there. Look at the positive, and like I said, there is the transhuman, like we're going to be controlled and in a cashless, moneyless society. So there's the negative scare story, but we're the ones who decide the way the culture goes. So you're deciding to step in as a creator and then understand what's the values, and then talk to your people. Just say, this is the game I'm going to play. Come and play with me. You could chat to me one-on-one, but in a very overarching sense, I'd say the NFT is simply your membership pass. So it's like, hi, you want to invest. It could be literally a coaching thing. It could be the way that they could buy an NFT and you might send them a real world painting, for example. Or you might do a live experience where it's like, hey, I'm going to hand out 100 NFTs and we're going to do a live painting experience where we're all going to get into a circle and you're all going to like channel with me what this painting is going to be. Should I use pink? Should I use blue? Are we going to do this? All right, we can, and they can actually co-create it with you. You can really play in any way you want, and you get to attribute the value of what the NFT can do, what special powers it has, so to speak. And so that's the way I do it, is really think of your genius, the experience you want to have. You can also start to encode some of those more spiritual aspects. Like you could give them a one-on-one card reading. You might want to have some sort of functionality in the NFT. This is getting into the programmability aspect, but maybe an NFT changes depending on the moon and star cycles. Obviously you'd need to pair with someone a bit more technical to get that aspect in. You could also just do it in an analog way. So maybe only certain NFTs function, so to speak, at certain times of the cycle, the lunar cycle or whatever it is. So you can really start to plug in more of a human decision point for yourself as to what is relevant and when. But overarching, and I'd love to throw to anyone else who is a creator, and maybe Priyanka or whoever else wants to chime in. But essentially, I would just say, you just think of it as an experience. And you're saying to people, cool, I'm going to walk you through this. We're actually going to send you out a simple tutorial on how to get a MetaMask wallet. So that would be what I'd say. You can easily get one yourself. You can plug into OpenSea. Like I said, I showed you the screen, you upload your thing and ding, you've got an NFT. Even if you just, do a soft mint, they pay for the gas fee. So it's just purely on them buying in for what you're doing. That you give them the same tutorial, they get a MetaMask wallet, they go and buy, and then they say, okay, what now? And even if that's the only crypto interaction you have, you can do everything else on your usual platform that you want to do. That'll be fine as well. I would suggest starting to host Discord communities. So that's something I can also cover a lot more in detail in Twitch, but it's very also free to get started with. You simply go to the server settings, you can do assign roles, and you'll create roles depending on if they're an NFT holder or not. You can do it in an analog way. For example, hi guys, can you please just email me proof of purchase? You could do it that way, and you can add them by hand, or you can start to have certain bots or integration whereby it actually gets verified. They connect up their wallet and it sees, yep, they did actually buy that NFT they said they did, and then they immediately get assigned a particular role. And that in that particular channel, you can put whatever you want. It could be video content, chat content, or anything else like that. So yeah, that's how I would think of it, is really just about giving them an experience and really saying, hey, we're going to go on this journey together. And then you can also link up to other communities like us and maybe start to be a mouthpiece for investment or trading. Many other different ways to go about doing it. But hopefully that makes sense.
I'd love to jump in if I can. Hey Shivani, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm good, thank you.
So yeah, I saw your question pop up in the chat before, and I've been sort of having a little think about it since. And the first response is like, well, how do you build value around anything? And obviously it's knowing who you're selling to, right? So understanding their pain points. What is it that they want? Do you want to save them time, stress, energy, money? Understanding what they want as well, like focus on the feelings that they get rather than the thing. I think people have a tendency, particularly when they're selling something, if you're a business or whatever, have a tendency to focus on the features rather than the benefits. And so people are always wondering what's in it for them. So for people, I started asking myself, I'm like, well, why do I buy? I've probably spent like nearly 30 grand on NFTs in the last few months. I'm like, why do I buy them? And I was thinking about it. I was like, well, there's a few reasons. For me, opportunity is a big part of it, because particularly when you're talking about programmability and looking at different projects, roadmaps, if there's an opportunity that I might make some extra money come through from like an airdropped NFT. Actually, I had one yesterday. I own a collection of NFTs called Fluffs, or I own a few of them. And I had an NFT airdrop come through yesterday that was like worth 0.5 of an ETH. So I just made half an ETH for doing nothing. And so I love the possibility, for me, I love the possibility of just having something come up down the track. I don't know, it's not guaranteed, it's not promised, but I like that opportunity. Access, you know, people like access to things. Think of the NFT not so much just as the product. I know that you're saying like it's art that you want to sell. Don't think of it as just being art. It's the service that you attach to it. And that service could be in the form of, you know, you've already got your communities. You're actually in a really good position because you've got people that know, like, and trust you. And so you don't have to go out and find people that you've never interacted before. You can literally tap into who you've already got in your community, and use these NFTs as a vehicle, well, one, as a vehicle to get them into this world, but two, you know, to build whatever it is for them. Maybe they want connection. Connection comes through the community. Maybe they want significance. It comes through the exclusivity of being in a tight community. This is why Bored Ape Yacht Club and that is so massive. It's like there's an exclusivity to it. So it's like figure out what the feeling the person wants. You know, do they want convenience? Do they want access to something? You know, the service. What's the service that you can attach to the artwork? The artwork is awesome. You know, I've bought NFTs just because I think they look cool as well. But if I'm going to buy off a stranger, and I have done it, if I'm going to buy off a complete stranger, just a one-off NFT that's not part of a collection, the art's got to be really eye-catching. You know, it's going to be something that I'm just like, oh, that's really sick. I want that. Because no one else is seeing it. This is living in my little, you know, in my little wallet. And I look at it and I go, I own that JPEG. You know, and I pay way too much for it, but that's okay because it looks pretty. All right. And so most people aren't going to do that. But most people will participate if you have something additional to the image. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. So then it's as well figuring out how to build whatever that is, because I've seen, you know, people with their landing page and they've got the whole roadmap and they've got a team and they've got like it goes from just painting to like having to build this big thing, which for me, I'm trying to figure out how to merge lessen the gap in between those two things.
Yeah, I could talk about that briefly as well, is that often when you're looking at those type of projects, you're probably looking at, as you said, teams with a number of NFTs, anywhere between 3,000 to 10,000. You're probably looking at, like a whole team that's running these big projects in an open way. There is a whole other area of NFTs, which are one-of-ones. They are handmade, beautiful pieces, very limited, not 10,000, literally just one. You might have a collection of 5 or 10 of them, each of them unique. And those people have a different kind of pull. It's all about the heart, the person behind the project, the unique scarcity of it. And so you'd probably want to go to a curated marketplace for that. Some of these things like Foundation, Known Origin, Super Rare, Async Art. I'm going to send you all of these links, so don't worry too much about remembering them. But you know, you can just Google marketplaces. These places you do have to be selected to enter, but there's also therefore a standard of quality. Sometimes you need to also have a referral. So you might need to network. This is where the network effect comes in, because you might have to get respect amongst people that are already on the marketplace to go, actually, you know what, I'm going to give this person my invitation to join this network. And then based on your quality of your work, you'll actually get a place. But that is an entirely different kind of marketplace to what we've been talking about. We've got these big projects that have to have tradable value and all this kind of gamified sort of aspects. It can be quite simple, and it does link back to that beauty, simplicity of traditional art, where people are collecting it because of you, and you've actually made your way to this very kind of curated space as an artist. So yeah, that's just a different way of thinking about it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Pleasure. I'll also just go over some of the value in these NFTs. I would welcome other questions as well from creators, just giving a bit more time to that. And then we're going to go off. We've got about, let's do another half hour, because we're going to go into the game space with Priyanka in a second. But if I was to look at why to get involved now, I would say these are the aspects of value that we're providing. We're giving someone ownership of something, and that just inherently is valuable because it's mine and I like it and I can do a flex, and there's something that is intrinsically human about owning and possessing things. The second thing is that there is ongoing value. So people are going to be keep giving value to your community when they get the chance to on-sell it, because you can embed royalties, and that is a form of actually paying yourself as an artist so you can continue to contribute to your community in that way. And also for them, there's a potential to sell it on and actually make money, which is flipping, which sometimes is looked down upon because it's like you're opting out of the community in favor of money. But some people do both. You know, I myself, if I really like a project, I might buy 2 or 3 NFTs from it. because I believe it's going to go up in value. I'm going to flip it later on, but I'll keep one as my membership pass, and the other NFTs are my flip and the way that I'm actually generating income from being a part of it. The third aspect is about content generation. So I'd highly encourage you to think of the idea of crowdsourced content and ask how your fans and your community members can actually start to add to the content of your particular project as well. So it could be in the form of giving them a template and they add their skin on top of the character, or maybe you do something like press record, which is another form of collaborative artistry creation, where maybe you put there's a project called Monograph, which Kevin's a part of, working with a subsidiary project, I guess, called Stems, I believe, if I'm working it out correctly, whereby the art, the music in this case, is released as separate strands, like the bass line, the drums, the vocals, etc. And you can own one of those and you can remix it yourself. So as an artist, it is quite an edge because you're giving over your content, you're asking for co-creation, you're giving over your IP, but at the same time, that's where your super fans are going to be involved, and your project benefits because your entire community adds to the creative content of your particular platform or project. So that's another aspect that benefits both ways, both the people getting a chance to play and also your brand gets all this genius and imagination injected into it. As Hayden was saying, future access. So you don't even have to have all the solutions right now. You might go like, I know for the next few months, I'm going to be creating cool stuff and I'm just going to give a few free ones to whoever invests in me now. It's like, back me now and you'll thank me later. And so you can do these free airdrops, which simply means you transfer for free and another NFT or another bit of content to someone who already holds one from before. So it can be like something that evolves over time. And then lastly, I'd say that if we admit to ourselves that the metaverse is here to stay, let's get involved now because we're building the foundational layer of something that will be created later on. Like base level, you want to have a PFP NFT or like a picture of your painting, like some kind of token thing that I'm now a collector of your project. The second thing you want to have is your community based around the idea of your product. The third thing you want to have is the behavior and how you're actually going to start to build out into a playable character, even if you're not a game designer, because it doesn't have to be a coded game. It might just be a character in an already existing platform like Decentraland or Sandbox. And they're very easy to rig these characters. I can help consult on how to turn a flat picture into a 3D character. Very simple. And you're going to start to want to run around as your character. And the fourth thing is you're going to want to have some real estate, like your clubhouse. Where are you going to meet? Is it always going to be on audio calls or Zoom kind of video calls? Or are you going to want to actually hang out together in a space? I say you are going to want to do that because that is Web3 in my mind. So let's get involved now and let's just get those basic foundational blocks in place for your brand, even if you're not pushing it to the next level, because to be honest, no one is. Even Bored Ape Yacht Club, I know they're bringing out this idea of like a super band, a bit like Gorillaz, where the NFTs themselves are the artists in this music band. That's really exciting. But even that, like right bleeding edge of the industry is still, in my mind, an underdeveloped use of the metaverse. So even if we don't know where it's coming to, let's get our basic building blocks in place by those things I just mentioned, the NFT for the art, the community aspect, working out the kind of behavior that you want in a sandbox place through the use of an avatar being extruded from a 2D image, and then getting some real estate. You might not have enough money to buy right now, but remember the value of content creation and creativity and culture, because you've got a lot of big whales or people with big pockets that own real estate that's dead land. There's nothing fun happening there. No one wants to go there. It's like owning in a house and it's just empty. It's not actually valuable. So even if you don't have land at the moment, go and propose, get some builders together, approach me, whatever. Let's go create something cool in the metaverse and start to activate these spaces. And you will be absolutely a pioneer in the space.
That was so awesome. sorry to jump in, but like for anyone, whether you're old or new to the space, maybe watch that replay again on Atlas. You could write that down, what you just said, because coming from someone who's been in it for so long, you've really simplified the process for artists so that you don't get overwhelmed in the space. The two platforms that you mentioned, actually just thinking of what Shivani was asking before, async art you mentioned, right? That's a super simple way for people to get in, because all you do is you put your layers of your art available, like Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever it is, and other artists can, or other buyers can manipulate the final product on your behalf. So you're kind of like getting the community involved in your art. And they also do music. And then for those artists here or those creatives here who do tangible things like jewelry or actual like canvases and things like that, check out Obtainable. That platform, they do basically what's being known as phygital assets, so physical and digital assets blended together. So you buy the NFT, but it might result in you getting a tattoo, or you buy the NFT, it might result in you getting a gold ring or some form of jewelry. And they focus more on like high frequency sort of stuff as well. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. And I love the fact that for me, the creation tools of all these things are so accessible. For example, we've talked a lot about Sandbox today. It's free to be a creator in that space. You can download it on for Mac or Windows OS. You can start to create these voxel characters. They've got their own rigging, and you can start selling them on the marketplace. And the way I would do it as an entrepreneur is I would approach these big brands, create a few cool things first, and then say, hey, Gucci or whatever big brand you approach, do you want me to make you some Gucci bags? Like this is my artistry. Do you want me to create something for you? Because this is the thing, there's this huge damn wall. And luckily we've got this breathing space, because to be honest, not just the volatility, but the UI experience, the technicality is keeping some people at bay. And so we've actually got a bit of a breathing room. And I do think that right now is the time for the entrepreneurs and the creators to get involved. And yeah, there would be correction and things do go down after they go up. And just stick with it and continue to build the infrastructure. So at the next on-ramp, my prediction is that it's just going to, like Google, Apple, all of these amazing front-end people are going to make it uber simple. You're going to press a button, you won't even think about it. And as Priyanka was talking about, the number of wallets currently involved is minuscule compared to what is going to happen. And so I think that we haven't missed it. We're on a bull run now, it's going to drop down, and maybe the next, or maybe the next one, you're going to have it triple, quadruple, 100x, and you can have all these people running on, and along with them, all the big brands. And you're going to be the digital natives. You're going to be the one like, oh, you want to come play on our playground? Cool, come in here. This is how it works. Cool. Well, I think it's time to throw back to you, Priyanka. We're going to take us through some more detailed look at some of these games to wrap up, and then I'll just have a final word.
Before you do, can I just ask a question or just mention something? Hi, I'm Leah.
Yes.
Hey, yeah, I just like I have a little bit of a map of an idea of something I want to work on, but where I feel like I'm at is that I need a buddy. I need someone to like pair up with to help me when I reach these roadblocks. So, like I went to Immutable X, signed up, and then I got to this point where I couldn't do anything further. So then I've sent an email through to them, but I've not heard back. So I'm like, I don't know if I attempt to create, all of these NFTs through them, or do I go through to OpenSea? Like just little basic things. I'm like,
Totally.
just want to get some things off the ground, but so that things can then spiral naturally the way that they need to. And even teaming up with people like Shivani, I was thinking, like even if we catch up and see what we can start to create in a creative way to create like some kind of community that then links in with your community, what you're creating, like these kinds of things. But rather than getting overwhelmed with how far it can all go, I just really feel like I need these basic building blocks to fall into place and align, so then everything starts to flow a bit. So like I've got these ideas for unreleased album artwork. I'm releasing my first music video, or the plan is to, next week. So yeah, just I thought maybe I could do that raffle idea. But how? Like, I just need some help, but I don't know
For
how.
sure. I mean, my encouragement from you would be to mess it up royally, like get in there and do it wrong 10 times and just press the buttons and work it out by making mistakes, fail fast, fail often, all that kind of thing. But to give you a practical resource, check out the Crypto Collective Discord. I'll do a real quick screen share right now and show you. We've got it all set up. It's free. I mean, sure, there is other content which you can access by doing masterclass and things like that, which we are in the process of doing. But we're really big on community building themselves and just being there, kind of like a buddy system, so to speak. So just join. And I love this conversation even here. Shivani, you've said like, hey, maybe we can meet up and chat. Totally do that. But just having a look here, and we can share the link. This is the Crypto Collective Discord. This is the public forum, getting started. But I'll even add one, like a collab channel here. You know, we've got NFT chat. If you've got any ideas, you can just put it in there. Gaming, DeFi, metaverse building. So that already exists. And we've got a community of people there. And I'll add one if there's enough interest. I'll add a channel that simply says, you know, collaboration call out, or, you know, common room, or whatever it is. And then you can actually go there and just put your hand up and say, I want to get involved. And we can form these guilds. We can go and make mistakes together. You've got a lot of people with a lot of experience in different aspects of crypto that will be able to chime in from time to time. But this peer-to-peer nature and learning together, and you know, as I say, you can't fail if you learn from it. It's never a failure. It's just a lesson. And so, yeah, that's would be my recommendation is tune into Crypto Collective, and there's plenty of us there which can help hold your hand along the way.
Okay, so literally would go to like the collab channel or the public forum and like just ask questions direct there, or?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there is already the one that's just public chat. You know, even before I make a channel which says collabs, just go to public chat, and I'm there all the time. There's a lot of us there, and we can continue to ask questions.
Okay, cool, amazing, thank you.
Pleasure. Cool. Well, yeah, I've called Priyanka twice onto stage, and we've had questions. I'm 100% going to do it. It's over to you now. Thanks.
Awesome.
Take us away. We're going into gaming.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Atlas, for that, and amazing questions. I didn't want to stop the creative flow. So thanks for all of that. So I wanted to deep dive into some gaming projects, and sort of start to give you a framework of a framework to look at some of the newer stuff that's coming up, as a way of keeping tabs. I'm focusing on gaming because I believe it's the entry point to the metaverse, but that doesn't mean that all of these beautiful creative ideas that have come about aren't incredibly valid. They're just different entry points. And so I'm highly biased that the lens at which I'm viewing the metaverse is through gaming, because I am on a gaming project. But it doesn't mean you can't have an artistic metaverse and all the rest of it. It's just how you define it and how you define the economy of it. What I will say though is that the community and that you have to have around you to build anything is quite considerable. I mean, I worked in a record label at the start of my career. I started out at Universal and then EMI Music, and lots of artists would want to come on board to get signed, and there's a huge process where you kind of need to have a base already, and a pretty strong base, and it's almost to the point where that person's calling you. The label is scouting you and chasing you in order to do that, and it's a very mysterious dance. And you know, having been on both the record label side of it, I'll probably say that they who just keep building will eventually attract things like brands and funding and sort of these bigger partners. But yeah, it's a very exciting space, and it's the same way with games. So I wanted to start with how I started my journey. I had a mentor that into this gaming space who basically told me in February, look, digital land is going to be big. You should definitely start to look at the space. And I was working in the property industry, so that was a really quick win for me. So I invested in a couple of these land projects like Decentraland and Sandbox. But what I did notice was that the UX experience wasn't great, and I still couldn't make the connection. Like, give me something tangible. And one of the Facebook groups, I saw this post about this project called Wilder World, and I was like, and it just said Wilder World, you know, entering a new dimension, and it used a lot of these spiritual words, and I'm like, cool. I mean, and they're very much into that fifth dimensional thinking. And so I did get on that token like pretty much the second day after they launched, and it's gone up massively. But what I'm going to do is just share my screen and take you through Wilder World and other projects and why I like them. So this is Wilder World, currently trading just on to $4. I got in quite a bit earlier. What I think is interesting about Wilder World and why I really liked it, so they released their governance token, they built this community. It's how they phrase the metaverse. So Wilder World is fully anon. Frank Wilder is an established NFT artist whose works sell for quite a considerable sum, and then he built this world around him. So unlike, I mean, he didn't start off as a game, he started off as a prominent artist And so already had a pretty big audience around him, partnered up with some tech guys and built like this space. And at the time when they expressed themselves, they looked at the Marvel universe and looked at other sort of cinematic experiences, and then looked at Wilderworld from that lens. And Wilderworld really is looking at how people can organize themselves in a different way. So they have a new type of, they have their own version of Discord called Zero, and their governance token then will start to inform how they run their artist marketplace. And Wilderworld is Frank Wilder's mission is really about onboarding artists. So they have their own artist market and sort of giving them a portal into the metaverse. So they developed a series of tokens. The only one that's been successful so far is their governance token. The other tokens, they haven't gone through a proper launch plan, so I'm not going to touch on them too much. But I will say this: they then launched Kicks, which is a shoe collection in collaboration with a fashion designer, and then they launched Wheels. And I bid on Kicks, but actually bought Wheels because Wheels was minted in a normal way. So they had this interesting mechanic where they created their own marketplace and they launched these Wheels. And the interesting thing about the Wheels is that they then form your entry point into their car racing game, which they're going to be releasing later this year. And by sort of using these Wheels, you sort of enter into their racing game. And then the Genesis Mint also gave you some land. And in the future, they're allowing you to stake your Wheels in order to earn wild tokens. So there's a sort of multi-dimensional play coming into play here, which I thought was really interesting. And what I also thought was interesting when I'd been in Twitter spaces with the founders is that they describe each of these different iterations. They've got Kicks, they've got Cribs, which is their they've sort of built a tower and you can buy an apartment in the tower, and then they've got land, and then they'll eventually have a guild as well for artists. Each of these are described as a different industry, and they might release more tokens to sort of look at that industry. So I sort of looked at it going that they're actually considering it in terms of the world and how the world works and economies. And when they released their Wheel collection, it was this like really, really beautiful 3D artwork. And then the fact that it has then utility in a world kind of made me go that they're not just releasing some 2D pic, they've actually thought this through. And they did a series of sort of posters and everything for promotion, but there's something about this project that had depth, and that's why I resonated with it. And what I loved, following on from the previous conversation, was that it's very artist focused, because the founder, Frank Wilder, is an artist. So very different to the gaming space. They didn't actually, I don't know if they have AAA gamers, but the developers are very much focused on the energy of the world and what kind of world they want to build. And they, if you look at it, like, land and housing and shoes, and they'll have pets. Like there's a very different way of approaching this. It's quite artistic and something which I think is quite accessible. So that's why I like Wilderworld. They don't suffer from a huge amount of hype because they launched in the bearish part of the market, which is May. I think the week the market crashed, they launched. So they haven't had that huge uptick. And so that's why I think this is a really interesting project, because it's still got some juice left, but I think it's got longevity because they've taken their time with these complex releases. So something quite cool about that one. And obviously, in full disclosure, I've invested in it, so I have followed, but I'm actually active in the community, so I really like it. The other type of game which I think is really cool, so this is Nakamoto games. In full disclosure, I invested in Scene Ground, so I know the project well, which is why I'm talking about it. Nakamoto, again, getting into this sort of play to earn movement. What I liked about it was it's a simple game. It's Duck Hunter, so some sort of nostalgia there. I thought, as well as the UX, they're actually creating a launch pad. So what that means is launch pads are basically platforms for new projects to launch. And so by holding 10,000 Naka tokens, you get access to early deals in the projects that they have brought into their launch pads, which I think is really clever, which means that what they're doing is sharing the upside of their deal flow. And sometimes you can get that. And I'd be looking at other launch pads for gaming. It's still yet to emerge which are the good ones. But what I thought was interesting is a game actually building an ecosystem and actually going, well, you know, initially, of course, they've got a shooter game, which is, you know, in a common genre and a sort of a replica of what already exists. But from the start, they're also going, well, we want you to experience the upside of our network, which is what I thought was interesting, which is why I invested. And so far, you know, they've followed their roadmap, which I think is really clever. They've got other mini games in the pipeline. And I really respected the fact that their team was doxed. Even though obviously I've invested in Wild where the team was not, but where, you know, the team was all in on, but this one's actually got a pretty amazing team. They've got some great advisors out there. And I just sort of go, well, there's, you know, infrastructure, and this is all really expensive. And the fact that Ash from Wall Street Best Bets was an advisor means that, you know, they're really focused on giving value on that token. Because this guy can drive token price like nothing else. And also if you look, yes, and you look at like who invested, I sort of follow invest when I invest. I do look at these funds. Perhaps it comes from a different perspective. I've pitched to some of those funds, so I kind of know the people who are clever and people who are not. But like, even as a retail investor, I would look at, have they got venture funds backing them? Because often it's the similar funds that follow each other. And, you know, the fact that Polygon Foundation came on board, Moonstarter, ZBS Capital, he owns Crypto Defer, Moonboots, they're the ones I follow usually. So there's a couple of these where I go, when I look at a project, I do look at the business model, I look at the, you know, what are the funds investing? And but I also look at the game. I'm like, I would play that game, Duck Hunter. It's kind of, I'm a casual gamer and I like simple games. So I don't usually play those multiplayer battle kind of games. That's not my demographic. Personally, it doesn't mean I can't market to those players, but that's not my thing. So for me, it was just easy to grab. That's why I liked it. And it didn't have too much hype, like a lot of games. So that's why I liked it. So then I'm going to go to a couple that have had huge hype, and some of them will play out and some of them won't. So Illuvium is an Australian, it's not Australian based, it's an Australian founder. And this game has had a shit ton of hype. It's now, I think the token's at 1,000. I have not invested in it. I just kept missing it and then it kept going, and now it kept going. So I probably should invest. But this is a beautiful game. It's an RPG game. The trailer looks amazing. I'd be really curious how it plays out. But, you know, obviously they're going after the hardcore gamer type, you know, audience. And what a hardcore gamer is the people that play Warcraft, League of Legends. Like they spend their time playing games. It's a very specific type of demographic. So they're really going hard after the gamer market. I like Illuvium, and why I think it's going to be a long-term play. They've been hiring from the gaming industry. So their CMO is ex-Twitch, and they've really started to invest into those people from AAA games and the social sort of part of it. It's play to earn. You can earn Illuvium tokens. They've got an incredible community, huge credibility. The founders have invested in other projects. Yeah, they're building on Immutable X. I don't know if that says any. I think Immutable X is still, you know, evolving. So I'd looked at that, you know, neither here nor there. But then again, I look at their partners. So Delphi Digital, they're an advisor in token economy. You know, they're part of Blockchain Alliance. They've already got Yield Guild on board. So they've got, you know, guilds starting to come on board. And I, again, now that at 1,100, it's amazing. And the founders are connected to the founders of Synthetics, so really good in the DeFi space as well, and they've got staking already. So they're sort of reducing sell pressure of their token by allowing you to lock it up and earn on it. So there's a lot of really clever things about Illuvium that they've done as a business that lets me know that it might go beyond the hype of an amazing trailer. A lot of games have amazing trailers and you kind of are curious, well, what's going on beyond there? But the fact that they even have careers up here tells me that this is a business. It's not a flash in the pan, and the founders definitely have credibility in the crypto space. Dreams Quest, I saw the trailer, was wowed, and then I didn't invest. I don't know why. I thought it was hype, but it's actually come through as a good deal. But like, I recommend looking at the trailer. It's amazing. I did buy after it launched. Why do I like this? It's play to earn and it's free to play, which means that you're not necessarily needing to buy a couple of axes to play, which I think is a bit of a barrier to entry. So there's something really cool about this. It's a card-based game, so some people are into that stuff. Again, as a game player, this is not my kind of game that I would like, just like Gods Unchained. It's not my type of game. That's why I hesitated on it, because I was like, well, as a gamer, this isn't my, I don't fully get, like, this wouldn't be something I'd be able to assess the quality of, because I don't play these types of games. But then you look at the quality of the sort of, you know, experience and the storytelling. I'd be looking at, well, you know, are they following their roadmap? What got me, why I did eventually invest, was the team. You know, I look at it and I looked at each of their profiles and I went, look, these guys have got some experience behind them. They're not flash in the pan. And, you know, they've got, yeah, like they had someone who was kind of in that chain link space. So someone who, like, they've got a lot of blockchain experience. They had a really good advisory team as well. So the fact that the Sandbox co-founder was an advisor and an investor said a little bit that they're connected in that gaming space. So for me, those are the things I look for when I personally invest in a game, because team is everything. You know, even in a bearish market, that team is going to work out strategies to come through, and they're going to have the ability to raise capital, which is, you know, the things that will enable a business to kind of pull through. So I think this is definitely a project to watch. Despite the fact it's done a decent run up, you know, it's definitely something to keep eyes on. Star Atlas, super hyped. A very beautiful graphics. Like this is a very Star Warsy type game. This one's interesting. So like Wilder World, they really are putting a lot on like sort of buying the assets. So you buy, I think, one of the ships. And you know, they've put a lot on assets, like the music and the cinematic experience is amazing. Where I think Star Atlas is a bit challenging, and this is why I sort of wasn't all in, is they're built on Solana. I don't mind Solana. I think it's got a ways to go, but the friction point's quite high, which means you have to have a phantom wallet in order to connect. And I sort of just looked at it from a consumer perspective. You know, even to buy the token, you have to be on FTX, or you have to be on Solana, and there's a lot of steps before someone would buy into it. And this is placing a huge bet on the Solana ecosystem, which is still pretty new. So that's my sort of cynical view of it. You know, going, well, do I like Solana? Meh. I mean, yes and no. Graphics wise, this is amazing. They've got the marketplace, they've got 2 tokens, they're really well thought through. Looks like a beautiful game. This looks like something I would play. There's something quite nice about the graphics. So I sort of I take that intuitive view. I look at the few things. The other reason I haven't invested, and this is my view, and it may not be every view, but I've heard the CEO is a bit of a jerk. And again, I place a huge emphasis on team. The token did this amazing run up, like I think 125 times or 200 times. And one of the influencers was like, well, I'm going to sell part of what was vested, because when you buy before it goes to list, there's a term called vesting, which means you get a portion of the tokens over a certain amount of time. And the CEO was publicly critical of this influencer. And I sort of just went, this tells me the team's a little bit inexperienced on how to deal with, you know, challenges. And it was a really terrible look. So I think there's a few things which I sort of flagged, going, there's a bit of ego going on in the team, so that doesn't fit with some of my values. You know, yes, the token did a run up. They did a run up because they had a really amazing launch with like they did their launch incredibly well. I would be curious to see how it pulls through, but from a graphics perspective, absolutely beautiful. They'll need to nail their 2 tokens, and they'll need to nail their NFTs, and I think they'll need to get over the friction point of dealing with Solana, which is my view on that. But from an asset perspective, it's absolutely stunning. And you know, I think this is definitely one of those things where I'd be watching it over the next couple of years and seeing if people actually buy into this story. You know, how much that sort of Star Wars copy narrative pulls through. But yeah, it's a sort of a we'll see. I think if I was to compare it, I feel Wilder World will definitely, like, this type of game will definitely go through. There's less tosses on the team, everyone's lovely, the community's great. Star Atlas has a bit of a vibe which I'm not really into. Alluvium is very hardcore gamer, it doesn't really match me. So these are my personal views. You know, obviously you've got to make your own. Another one that's been getting, I really like this one, Gaia Everworld, Mystical World of Gaia Everworld. It's done reasonably well. They've got an NFT release, which is really, really cool. You know, I like the fact that the team is fully doxed. You can look them up, or some of them are. You can look them up. It had a really good launch. The reason I got into this one, not early, but, you know, somewhat just soon after launch, is I like the all of these investors are people that I've spoken to. So there was something about that I was like, cool. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So I was like, okay, cool. They're in with the right crowd. Where I used to work at SyncDAO, we had some of these investors, so I know them. It's easy for me to kind of contact them and go, look, what do you really think? But yeah, there's something about this that appealed to me. How they're going to do long term, I'd be curious. I didn't place a huge investment for that reason. They are on Polygon, so I like them for that. I think Polygon is, you know, we're building on Polygon on the project I'm at right now. I think Polygon is a chain that's really, is probably going to be one of the chains that gaming will go on. It's compatible with OpenSea. Coinbase is supporting it. Now Celsius is building on it. Like there's a lot of major players that are building on Polygon. So there's one reason to back it. The team's lovely at the Polygon Foundation. Yeah, what the other things that really ticked a few boxes for me with Gaia was they picked the right tech. They had a good team. They had a really great amount of investors. The launch was great. So there's a few ticks there. I personally like the story, so that it sort of appealed to me. And so I do take a personal view. Do I like this? Would I play it? You know, is this a sort of interactive thing that I would kind of go for? The marketplace and breeding mechanisms, you know, I guess they're similar to Axie. These are kind of norms now. And you know, they've got creatures and, you know, marketplaces with respect to players. So yeah, I can't say that's super original, but it's not super original gaming either. But so it will depend on how they build their audiences, but barriers to entry is quite low. Again, something that I didn't sort of mention too much is you do obviously want to look at community. They've got, I think their communities could do with a bit of work. 17,000 on Telegram isn't really much, and for a gaming project they should be much higher. So again, this is why I didn't go hard on investing, but you sort of want to kind of put these kind of moon bags in case something takes off. And I'd be looking at their Twitter and their Discord as well. So Twitter's 43,000, and I'm guessing Discord will be quite considerable as well. So that's where you might see, you know, more of that traction. In general, I wouldn't judge any project by their Telegram alone, because Telegram's garbage. But yeah, that's sort of a view. All of these projects I really like because there's multiple ways to participate. You can buy the token, you can buy one of the tokens, you can play the game and earn the other token, you can buy the NFT, you can just be part of the community and sort of see what's going on in case there's some activity or reward for participation. Yeah, you could just play the game, and often with these games there's rewards that might be airdrop later for people who got on board early. So yeah, I think there's sort of ways in which to do it. Why would you do it if you're not a gamer? I would do it for the sake of understanding that these are one of the portals to the metaverse gaming. I sort of am of the view, as I've explored it more and more, it is a very rich form of storytelling. It's a way of connecting to other people, from my experience of Wilder World as well. And it's a way of kind of understanding a market that's quite passionate, loyal, is engaged in a way that I haven't seen before. So yeah, there's a lot of plus points there, but that's my kind of hot take on the gaming space and projects that are really hot right now. If just opening the floor, people have questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Loved seeing some of those I'm familiar with, but some new ones too. So love that dive into the games.
Hidden gems.
Yeah. Any questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, with these projects, they need artists and creators. So I would get involved in the Discords. They need musicians as well. I know from us that, you know, as stories evolve, you need pull in resources often like quite quickly at different points. So it's a really good way of getting involved in a project. And because the difference between blockchain and like traditional gaming is blockchain gaming are heavily focused on community, and we want to source from community. So if you want to get in with these games, often you'll find that the team is on these social platforms as well.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I'll just do my little final wrap-up speech. Unless there's any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and we can always come on and answer those. Also, just making a space if someone wanted to turn on the camera and ask a question, you're more than welcome to do so. So in order for me to get my head around it, I always like to try and distill it down to the potent, pungent sediment at the bottom of this beaker that we've shaken up with all our excitement. And I would kind of distill it down in this way. If you want to get involved, please just get 3 particular apps: Twitter, Discord, and Telegram. Now, Telegram, as Priyanka was saying, is not so favored in the gaming and NFT space. It's more for general crypto, coins, tech kind of thing. It's still relevant. Even if you just want to see in how they engage, you'll need the app. But those 3 touch points are the essential conversation piece for community in the crypto space. The next thing I'd look at are these 6 ways of getting involved. You buy the NFT, and by NFT, it could be the character, avatar, profile picture, or even the real estate, the wheels, whatever it is, whatever the unit is of your investment in and membership pass to it. Get involved in that way. Play the game. And by that, it means it could be directly playing a video game, or it might just be getting involved with their community, which would be my third part, is actually engage in the community, add to discussion, even just being an encouraging voice in Discord. These are human beings after all. I was involved in one particular project, and the artist got really disheartened because he was getting mean messages and then left the Discord. So these are not robots, these are people making the art. And so, yeah, just really being involved in the community. And when you get that rise in confidence, then the floor price is, you know, based on people's confidence in it. So you can actually add value to the project in which you're invested by being a good community member, investing in that way. As Priyanka also said, you don't have to just buy the NFTs. You can actually invest in the tokens based around the project. And that is, I guess, a more liquid form because you can then trade it depending on the comparative value to other coins. You can also do, like you said, run a node, which means your computer runs part of the network or the operating system of that particular project or blockchain, whatever it is. Usually that's a bigger buy-in. We're looking at, say, Gala Games, you're looking at between $21,000 to $23,000. So yeah, it's a lot different to buying just a one-off NFT. At the same time, you're getting a passive income continually by running that for a few hours a day. And then lastly, as Kevin was saying there, and we're all saying, is create content. Add content, creativity. It can come through in so many ways. You might actually take your NFT like I'm doing and want to create a little show with your characters that you own the IP of. You might just want to be creative in the Discord. You might want to make some fan art, take it and remix it, put some music to it. You might want to contact the creators and say, hey, I'm a producer. Do you want to use my music in the background of your metaverse experience, whatever it is? You might be able to co-create like in Blanco's Block Party, where you can actually design a character and then on-sell it. Or you might get more and more reins, depending on the director of the project, where you can really be a part and a co-creator. Like in Sandbox, it's such a perfect balance of being a creator and a participant. So hopefully those 6 things make sense. Buy the NFTs, play the game, engage in community, invest in the token, run a node, and create content. And together we can make the metaverse that much more human. And that'll be my closing word, is the fact that this is not about rejecting nature. It's about giving a place for our minds and imaginations to run wild without the constraints of physics. There is still a scarcity, tangible aspect which NFTs bring in, but ultimately we can demonstrate and play test different measures of society, different methods of contribution and participation. It's all based on lifeblood flowing through the space. You might want to have a direct token attached to your project, which does relate to cryptocurrency, but you also might want to make up true magical internet money, which is just $1 million. You've got $1 million happy stars, whatever it is. So you can have this kind of play space and you work out the intrinsic value, meaning the feeling you give people, how you change them, what's the experience that comes about by being part of your project. And then you gently start to correlate that to financial value in crypto. So I really believe that there's a huge future here. It's undeniable, if you ask me. You know, whether you look at the charts or the whispers in the back rooms, we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, and we're doing it. So it is here. So I really encourage you to get involved in those 6 ways I just mentioned. And please keep watching the Twitch channel. And this is the way that it's actually going to stay. If you want to go on the duality of light and dark, are we going to be controlled by the technocratic overlords, or is this going to be a place for imagination to run wild? It's up to us to co-create it together. And that's a big part of what responsibility, sovereignty, and decentralization is all about. Thank you so much, all of those who've been here. Once again, a marathon. We just keep blowing out on time-wise, but that's just because there's so much to talk about. Thank you, Priyanka, for holding stage with me today. Really enjoyed you in the space. And I'm sure there'll be much co-collaboration continuing on in Crypto Collective as well. So thank you for being here. All those watching the replay, please do join us on the Twitch channel /Crypto Collective. Please do join the Discord, ask any questions there. We're around. And obviously everyone here has their own projects and, you know, has their own coaching or offerings in their own right. So everyone's welcome to be contacted as individual people, as we all are. Thank you so much. This is CryptoSafari. We're now closing up for the night so that the animals can run wild in the metaverse. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next game.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thanks. Thanks, Hayden.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
My video is off. I was going to do a Buzz Lightyear send-off to infinity and beyond.
You can come here. Come to your send-off. Come to your send-off.
Come on, do it.
Yeah,
Oh,
to infinity and beyond.
No, again. One more time with passion. One more time with passion.
do it.
To infinity and beyond.